Chapter 55-40. Lin Xiaotian and the others really did not expect that the two female companions that Kang Xinmu brought along would actually have the bloodline of a 16-winged heavenly demon god. This was too shocking. Moreover, they possessed such terrifying strength. The 16 demon god wings behind them flapped, and waves of pitch-black demon chi shook the void, enveloping the body of the fire-tailed scorpion lion. Then, the demon chi formed a vortex, and the fire-tailed scorpion lion was sucked in. The demonic beast tried to escape, but how could it escape? In an instant it was sucked in, torn to pieces by the demon chi vortex, and instantly disappeared without a trace. Lin Xiaotian and the others were all dumbfounded. They did not expect that Kang Xinmu and the other two, who looked about the same age as them, had such strength. Soon, Kang Xinmu bid farewell to Lin Xiaotian and the others. The limitless thief demon god, the inherited power of the demon god race, still had its merits, but after all, it was still not as good as the inheritance of a 16-winged heavenly demon god. Otherwise, it would not be possible for the Su clan, which had the inheritance of a 16-winged heavenly demon god, to become one of the royal clans of the demon god race world. Moreover, it was one of the strongest royal clans. After traveling outside for a month, Kang Xinmu followed the two women back to the territory of the Su clan royal clan. The two sacred treasures that he won from the bet with the Tuoba royal clan had finally arrived. Kang Xinmu, you and Yi take one each, I'll let you choose first. Su Jiu called the two over and raised her hand to release the two sacred treasures. Regarding sacred treasures, Kang Xinmu was not surprised. After all, he already had a super powerful sacred treasure, the Starry Sky Small World. Moreover, even the sacred treasure of Emperor Shi was obtained by Kang Xinmu from a relic. One could imagine that Kang Xinmu was not unfamiliar with sacred treasures. But Su Yi had never seen it before. At this moment, the two arrived at Su Jiu's residence. Su Jiu gently raised her hand under her white robes, and two black specks of light flew out from her sleeves. These were the two sacred items that the Tuoba royal family had sent over. They are gifts from the Taba clan after all. That Taba Matian is a wily old fox. The clan head and I have already inspected them many times. There are no problems with these two sacred items. It's just that we have yet to remove the seals within them. Su Jiu pursed her lips into a smile. Divine martial art, you can choose one first. The remaining one belongs to Yi. Yi, when the time comes, you can ask the patriarch to remove the seal for you so that you can unleash the true power of this saint martial art. Then, she looked towards Kang Xinmu, and lightly smiled. Xinwu, if you want to remove the seal, our Su dynasty can also help. It's just that there's something we need your help with. When Kang Xinmu heard this, he nodded and said, there's no harm in saying it. Without a doubt, the Su dynasty was raising another trade condition. They used the condition of helping him remove the 9 heavenly saint rank engraving in exchange for letting him do something. Regarding this, Kang Xinmu didn't mind. However, it would be best if someone could help remove the seal. After all, too many materials were needed to remove the seal. If Kang Xinmu had to rely on himself, it would be extremely difficult. With this 9 heavenly saint rank engraving, Kang Xinmu's battle prowess would skyrocket. At the very least, he would have a super trump card that could face supreme experts. However, he didn't know what the Su dynasty wanted him to help with. Su Jiu muttered to herself, and her beautiful eyes landed on Kang Xinmu's body. In a certain forbidden area within our Su dynasty's territory, there's a mysterious restriction. That mysterious restriction can only be entered by transcendent god-level cultivators. Before this, we sent many experts in, but in the end, none of them came out. If you have the confidence, you can go and explore. Speaking to there, Su Yi suddenly pouted her small mouth. And, aren't you sending Brother Jiang to his death? What if he can't come out? Su Jiu shook her head and said gently, this depends on whether Xinwu is willing to go or not. If he isn't willing, we naturally won't force him. I think that Xinwu should be willing to go. Ant has previously approached that forbidden area and felt that the forbidden area has a certain aura that's a bit similar to Shenwu's. If Shenwu is curious, he can first go and investigate before deciding whether or not to enter. These words surprised Kang Shinmu. A restriction with an aura that's a bit similar to mine? What kind of aura is that? Could it be the aura of devouring power? Kang Shinmu's expression changed slightly. The demon god ancestor's consciousness immediately said, "It's very likely." Back then, the dragon god's great world was almost destroyed by the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon. Therefore, a restriction was left in the dragon martial continent, sealing a part of the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon's evil thoughts. And my demon god's great world was also almost destroyed by it. After my race was completely annihilated, I thought that this great world would disappear, but it didn't. I'm afraid that the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon is also sealed in some restriction. Next, Kang Shinmu began to communicate with the consciousness of the demon god ancestor, Moyi. It was very likely that the remnant of the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon was sealed in a different great world, so it couldn't be reborn now. Then what kind of existence is the black dragon consciousness in my mind? Is he the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon? Kang Shinmu was a little uncertain now. He felt that perhaps the black dragon consciousness was just a part of the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon. According to the black dragon, it was a part of the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon's good thoughts, but Kang Shinmu didn't dare to fully believe such a statement. Thinking that his father was still bound in the restriction in the dragon martial continent, Kang Shinmu knew that he had to go to the restriction that Su Jiyu mentioned. It was very likely that he could obtain information about the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon, which might be helpful in rescuing his father. Since that's the case, I'll go take a look first. Kang Shinmu said to Su Jiyu in a deep voice. Yes. Su Jiyu nodded. Then get ready. We'll set off tomorrow morning. Go take a look first. Whether to enter or not is up to you. And, why do you want Brother Jiang to go to that restriction? Su Yi couldn't understand. The existence of that restriction has already affected the development of our Su royal family. Su Jiyu felt a headache coming. She lightly touched her forehead. The aura of the restriction is spreading in all directions, suppressing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and the power of the demon god in that area, and the range is getting larger and larger. If it can't be resolved, I'm afraid that the Su royal family's territory will soon be completely enveloped by the power of the restriction. Was the situation already so serious? Kang Shinmu was a little surprised to hear this. If the power of the restriction was starting to leak, it meant that the power of the restriction was very likely to have loosened. He had to go as soon as possible. If that really is the seal of the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon, once it escapes, it will very likely lead to a great disaster. Chapter 55-41. I want to take a look at the situation, but I can't guarantee that I'll be able to solve it. Kang Shinmu said to Su Jiyu. Su Jiyu nodded gently and didn't say much. She knew that Kang Shinmu couldn't give her any guarantees. Even top experts like her and Su'er couldn't deal with the restriction. Letting Kang Shinmu take a look was just a glimmer of hope. In reality, Su Jiyu and Su'er didn't have much hope for Kang Shinmu. Then, Su Jiyu unfolded the 2 black dots of light. 2 saint treasures with 9 layers of inscriptions weren't something that could be easily obtained. After Kang Shinmu gave the saint treasures he obtained from the relic to Emperor Shi, the dragon's strength greatly increased. As for Jiang Shenwu, he had also received what could be considered a massive amount of rewards for him back then. Therefore, this 9-layered engraved heaven and earth saint grade was also an opportunity for Jiang Shenwu to improve. I'll discuss with Yi about choosing. Kang Shinmu said with a smile. Su Jiyu had originally let him choose first, but Kang Shinmu had the treasure of the starry sky small world, so he let Su Yi choose first. Making Su Yi stronger would make Kang Shinmu feel more at ease, so that he wouldn't have to worry about her safety when they went out together. Big brother Jiang, you choose first. Su Yi was very sensible, and modestly declined, I'll stay in the Su royal family and won't encounter any danger. Also, you're going to see the restrictions soon, so I think you should choose first. You can even take both. She was especially considerate of Kang Shinmu. She didn't lack saint treasures anyway. Su Jiu couldn't help but laugh. Of course, she suggested one for each person, and hoped that Su Yi would be safe. But since Su Yi said so, she wouldn't stop her. However, just because Su Jiu didn't stop her didn't mean that Kang Shinmu didn't have any objections. Let's not be modest. Let's see what kind of power these two sacred items possess. Use whatever suits you. If it suits me, I won't reject it. Kang Shinmu said with a smile. After all, the wager was only established by relying on the Su dynasty, and it was also the Su dynasty who went to get the sacred treasure. Otherwise, how could Kang Shinmu get it? Therefore, he would not accept two saint-grade treasures of heaven and earth. Let's look at the situation first and let Su Yi choose one with a stronger defense ability. Upon hearing this, Su Jiu released two black light spots, each of which transformed into a sacred object of heaven and earth, and floated in front of Kang Shinmu and Su Yi. This is the extreme 10-direction demon seal. After the seal is unsealed, it can smelt the power of the cultivator and turn it into demonic chi of the 10-direction. Not only does it possess a strong offensive ability, it also has some special effects. This is the chaotic spirit armor. After the seal is unsealed, it can turn into armor and be worn on the cultivator's body. It has strong resistance. If all 9 layers of seal are unsealed, it can even resist the joint attack of 10 peak supreme experts. Su Jiu introduced. One was the extreme 10-direction demon seal, an attack-type sacred object. The other was the chaotic spirit armor, a defensive type. It could withstand the joint attack of 10 peak supreme experts. One could imagine the defensive ability. It was definitely a terrifying sacred object of heaven and earth. To the Tuoba dynasty, this was a great loss. Take the chaotic spirit armor. Kang Shinmu said rather forcefully. I don't want it. You can have both. Su Yi was very insistent. Listen to me. Kang Shinmu shook his head. The chaotic spirit armor was useful to him, but not particularly. In comparison, the extreme 10-direction demon seal was more to his liking. Although the attack of a sacred object of heaven and earth needed to absorb and replenish the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, and could only be released after a long time, if the extreme 10-direction demon seal was unsealed, it could definitely kill a peak supreme expert with a single attack. This was the deterrent power of a sacred object of heaven and earth with 9 layers of seal. In comparison, if Kang Shinmu only had the chaotic spirit armor, it would not be strong enough to deter others. It was more suitable for Su Yi to use for self-defense. Kang Shinmu was rather worried about this girl. With the chaotic spirit armor, he did not need to worry about her encountering any danger. Seeing that Kang Shinmu was rather insistent, Su Yi did not say anything else. She was just very happy, as sweet as if she had eaten honey. The matter was decided just like that. Su Yi chose the chaotic spirit armor, while Kang Shinmu chose the extreme 10-direction demon seal. Kang Shinmu put the extreme 10-direction demon seal into his pouch. He could feel the surging power within it. This kind of supreme treasure obtained from historical remains was called a sacred object of heaven and earth because it could absorb and accumulate the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. As long as it was filled with spiritual chi, it would be able to release an attack. As long as one could bind the bloodline of a sacred object of heaven and earth, they would be able to use this sacred object of heaven and earth. However, if a cultivator with a lower cultivation used a sacred object of heaven and earth that was too powerful, it would cause a certain degree of backlash to the cultivator. Of course, this only applied to sacred objects of heaven and earth that were more aggressive, such as the extreme 10-direction demon seal. If it was a defensive sacred object of heaven and earth like the chaotic spirit armor, the user would not suffer from backlash. However, the chaotic spirit armor could not actively attack others, it could only defend. No matter how strong the defensive ability was, it was useless in certain situations. Basically, it could only be used to buy time. Of course, under some special circumstances, this type of defensive sacred object of heaven and earth would be extremely useful. To Kang Shinmu, he needed a stronger deterrent power. The extreme 10-direction demon seal was just right for his current needs. Of course, if he really wanted to unleash the full power of the extreme 10-direction demon seal, he had to unlock all 9 layers of seals. Even if he could not unlock all 9 layers of seals, he had to unlock some of them. If he unlocked all 9 layers of seals, Kang Shinmu was afraid that he would not be able to withstand the backlash. However, if he unlocked some of them, he would be able to deter ordinary experts. Currently, he did not have enough cultivation resources to unlock the sacred objects of heaven and earth. Therefore, he had to go to the forbidden area first to find out what was going on there. Shenwu, give me your extreme 10-direction demon seal. I will unlock the first 5 layers of seals for you. Su Jiyu said to Kang Shinmu. All right. Kang Shinmu trusted her and handed the extreme 10-direction demon seal to her. However, before handing it over, he had already fused the extreme 10-direction demon seal with his bloodline and bound it together. He could sense its existence at any time. This was the same as the sacred object of heaven and earth, the small starry sky world. It was impossible for Su Jiyu to covet this sacred object. If she really wanted it, she would not have given him the extreme 10-direction demon seal just now. After that, Kang Shinmu rested. Chapter 55-42. 3 days later, Su Jiyu returned and handed the extreme demon seal to Kang Shinmu. The first 5 seals have been unlocked. If it's used at full power, it will have the power of a novice supreme expert. It can be used for both offense and defense. Su Jiyu smiled gently and said, of course, this extreme 10-directional devil seal is best for attacking. I understand. Thank you, Aunt. Kang Shinmu nodded. Su Jiyu had unlocked the first 5 seals of the extreme demon seal in just 3 days. It was already quite good. Even his own starry sky pocket dimension had not unlocked that many seals. This extreme 10-directional devil seal was something that the Su dynasty took out their resources to unseal. It could be seen that they still valued Jiang Shenwu very much. There was even a hint of treating him as one of their own. After all, in the next 3 years, the Su dynasty would receive a lot of cultivation resources. These cultivation resources were extremely important to the entire Su dynasty. Kang Shinmu had fought for these resources for them. If they were all taken out, it would be more than enough to unlock all the seals of the extreme demon seal. Of course, time was tight. Kang Shinmu did not expect them to unlock all the seals in a short period of time. Moreover, he still had to go take a look at the loosened black seal. Let me test out the power of the extreme demon seal first. Kang Shinmu smiled. Sure, bring it on. Su Jiyu pursed her lips and smiled. In the next moment, she flew backwards and instantly transformed into a slender 16-winged heavenly demon god. The 16 demonic wings on her back fluttered with the wind, giving off a feeling of agility. Her demonic pupils were as deep as the starry sky, carrying her original gentleness. Anyone who looked at her would feel their heart move. I'm coming. Kang Shinmu transformed into a 16-winged demonic god. The black demonic aura around him dispersed. Then, the extreme demon seal appeared in his hand. A square seal floated in midair. Black aura pervaded the air, faintly shaking the void. Go! Terrifying devil chi was released from the supreme seal of the 10 directions. In the next moment, waves of devil chi rippled and swept towards the slender devil god that Su Jiyu had transformed into. The power of this strike completely exceeded Kang Shinmu's imagination. It also contained endless mysteries of the world, as if the surrounding space and mysteries were all condensed together. That was the supreme profound meaning. A supreme powerhouse could comprehend a supreme level of the profound mysteries of heaven and earth. Every single movement of theirs could move space and move heaven and earth. This was the power of the extreme 10-directional devil seal that had been unlocked for 5 layers. Accompanied by the vibrations of the extreme 10 devil seal, the ripples of devil chi had already landed on Su Zhiyu's devil god body. Seeing this, Su Zhiyu raised her hand and formed a devil chi barrier, blocking the attack of Kang Xinmu's extreme 10 devil seal. Her cultivation had long surpassed the basic supreme level, so the power of Kang Xinmu's attack did not pose any threat to her. But Kang Xinmu could feel the terrifying power in his attack. If he had this power before, he would only need one strike to face opponents like Li Tianxiong and Tuoba Shui. Even all the younger generation of the Demon God clan participating in the ranking tournament combined would be defeated by his attack. This was the terrifying power of the supreme level. It shook the void and stirred the power of heaven and earth. It was impossible to block it with ordinary means. Of course, it was not that Tuoba Shui did not have such means. It was just that in the ranking tournament, the use of heaven and earth sacred treasures was prohibited. Otherwise, it would lose its original meaning. You haven't used it well enough. Su Zhiyu's gentle and dignified voice came from her 16-winged devil god body, like a goddess guiding her believers. I've only used about 80% of my power. You can try more. Kang Xinmu nodded his head. It would take a long time for the power of the great 10-directional devil seal to be recharged. Especially after the 5th layer of the seal was unlocked, it would take at least 3 to 5 days to recharge. But since it was for Kang Xinmu to try it out, Su Zhiyu could definitely help. She raised her hand and the 16 devil god wings on her back flapped, condensing a vortex of the power of heaven and earth. This vortex of the power of heaven and earth gathered into a torrent of spiritual energy and gathered into the great 10-directional devil seal. Because her cultivation level had far exceeded this level, it was very easy for her to recharge the great 10-directional devil seal that had been unlocked. In just a few breaths, the great 10-directional devil seal was once again filled with the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Kang Xinmu raised his hand and the great 10-directional devil seal floated up. He could feel the huge energy contained in it surging under his control. Again. He felt the surging energy in the great 10-directional devil seal and focused his mind and body on it. In the next moment, he released the most terrifying devil chi vibration once again, condensing into waves of ripples and attacking Su Zhiyu. Su Zhiyu's slender devil god body was still majestic and unmoving, but her gentle devil god eyes revealed a tinge of surprise. Not bad, you are improving very quickly. She was a little surprised. It was already very impressive for Kang Xinmu to release 80% of the power of the great 10-directional devil seal the first time, but it had improved again the second time. This speed of improvement was indeed very fast. Based on the current situation, in less than a day, he would be able to completely master the power of the great 10-directional devil seal. Of course, the prerequisite was that she could restore the power of the great 10-directional devil seal for Kang Xinmu. Otherwise, it would not be so easy for Kang Xinmu to familiarize himself with the great 10-directional devil seal. Again. Again. Waves of devil chi vibration continuously exploded in the field. Su Zhiyu was as steady as a mountain, and Kang Xinmu's control of the great 10-directional devil seal was also steadily improving. In reality, to fully unleash the power of the great 10-directional devil seal, it did not depend on Kang Xinmu's control over it, but mainly on his compatibility with the great 10-directional devil seal. He could feel that the great 10-directional devil seal was a saint item with its own consciousness, just like the small starry sky world. It seemed that the small starry sky world was controlled by Kang Xinmu, but in reality, Kang Xinmu could feel that there was a terrifying consciousness hidden in it, constantly guiding him to expand the small starry sky world. He was already connected with that terrifying consciousness. Their thoughts were interlinked, and he could feel the thoughts of that consciousness. Now, the great 10-directional devil seal was almost the same. If Kang Xinmu wanted to fully unleash its power, he had to be completely compatible with it, just like merging with the dragon weapon. Time and time again, he tried again and again in his hands. Chapter 55-43. 7 days later, Kang Shinmu was finally able to use the extreme devil seal like it was his own arm. Su Jiyu had actually been his sparring partner for 7 days. If news of this were to spread to the demon god clan's royalty, they would probably die of jealousy. After all, Su Jiyu was extremely attractive to the entire demon god clan. Countless demon god clan's royalty had been pursuing her, wanting to marry her. From the past until now, there had never been a man who could make Su Jiyu care as much as Kang Shinmu. Thank you, Aunt. After Kang Shinmu put away the extreme devil seal, he expressed his gratitude to Su Jiyu. You're welcome. Su Jiyu pursed her lips into a smile, her tone gentle. Then I'll prepare to set off. Kang Shinmu said in a low voice, his expression rather solemn. Do what you can. If you can't do it, don't force it. Do you understand? Su Jiyu reminded him, you must put your own safety first. I understand. Kang Shinmu nodded solemnly. This time, Kang Shinmu did not plan to bring Su Yi with him to the restriction. Instead, it was Su Jiyu who planned to bring Kang Shinmu all the way. The restriction is not very far from our Su clan's royal castle. It's only a few hundred miles away. The demonic aura within has already spread for dozens of miles. At this rate, perhaps in a decade or so, our Su clan's royal castle will have to move. Su Jiyu sighed. Along the way, Kang Shinmu did not say much. He did not know much about the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon. There was no other way. He had to take one step at a time. First, he had to see what was going on with the restriction. In the Dragon Martial Continent, there is a dragon sealing abyss. It seems to imprison and seal a part of the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon's consciousness. In my body, there is also a part of the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon's consciousness. It claims to be the benevolence of the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon. Then the demonic aura restriction of the demon god clan's great world might also be a part of the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon's consciousness sealed here. At present, Kang Shinmu could only make such a guess. Under Su Jiyu's lead, the two of them passed through an ancient teleportation formation and arrived at a rugged mountain valley. Above the mountain range, there was a barrier of the demon god clan. It was cast by the experts of the Su clan, and it sealed off the entire mountain range. If they wanted to enter the mountain range, they could only go through a canyon entrance, and there were elite guards of the Su dynasty standing guard at the canyon entrance. Greetings, First Princess. Seeing that Su Jiyu had arrived, dozens of elite guards of the Su royal family all half-knelt and paid their respects to her. Get up. Su Jiyu said gently, and then introduced, this is Kang Shinmu, a genius who has helped our Su clan a lot recently. I plan to enter the canyon to take a look at the restrictions. This is the clan leader's token. You can take a look. The first princess must be joking. Please come in. The leader of the guards of the Su clan sized up the clan leader's token, then smiled solemnly and invited Kang Shinmu and Su Jiyu to enter the canyon together. Kang Shinmu followed Su Jiyu all the way to the canyon, and soon passed through the array set up by the experts. Just as they entered the canyon, Kang Shinmu's expression suddenly changed. He could clearly feel that the canyon was filled with the aura of a devouring power. Although the devouring power was very faint, and even an expert like Su Jiyu might not be able to feel it, to Kang Shinmu, the aura of the devouring power was extremely familiar. It really is the power of the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon. Could a part of the consciousness of the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon really be sealed in this restriction? Kang Shinmu thought to himself as he followed Su Jiyu into the depths of the canyon. He did not move for the time being, and began to communicate with the demon god ancestor and the black dragon consciousness in his mind. The black dragon consciousness, this is the place where my evil thoughts are sealed. You must be careful. If I can subdue it, my power will greatly increase, and I can suppress the evil thoughts, even assimilate them. Demon god ancestor Mo Yi, young man, you must be careful. No one knows if this so-called benevolence of the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon is really benevolent. It's best not to believe him, and you must take the devouring power here for yourself. Following that, the Black Dragon Consciousness and the Demon God Ancestor began to wrangle. Kang Shinmu did not continue listening. He only knew that whether it was the Black Dragon Consciousness or the Demon God Ancestor's words, he could choose not to believe them. Everything could be judged by himself. He already had a portion of the devouring power in his body, so his understanding of this power far surpassed that of the Demon God Ancestor. As for the Black Dragon Consciousness, as the Demon God Ancestor had said, it was temporarily impossible to determine if what it said was true, so he had to be vigilant. If the Black Dragon Consciousness obtained this portion of the restriction's power and obtained power that surpassed the Demon God Ancestor, wouldn't it suppress the Demon God Ancestor's consciousness? If that happened, Kang Shinmu would no longer be able to suppress the Black Dragon Consciousness. Let's go take a look at the restriction first. Kang Shinmu's heart was extremely solemn as he followed Su Jiyu, and they soon arrived at the depths of the canyon. In the depths of the canyon, the devouring power had already spread everywhere. The pitch-black devouring power formed pitch-black, decaying demonic claws that spread out in all directions. The giant trees and boulders around the canyon were all covered by the pitch-black demonic claws. The devouring power was constantly absorbing the energy and nutrients of everything around it. And in the center of the deepest part of the canyon, there was a cracked stone tablet. The stone tablet had already been completely shattered, and the ancient words on it were indecipherable. However, the devouring power was leaking out from the stone tablet's suppression. It was eroding the entire canyon, and it possessed a terrifying aura. This is the restriction. This power is very similar to the power in your body, Su Jiyu said in a low voice. Su Jiyu said in a low voice. This restriction can only be entered by those at the transcendent God level? Kang Shinmu asked. That's right. I once wanted to enter to take a look, but my power seemed to be too great. Entering would only cause the restriction to collapse faster. Su Jiyu sighed. The supreme inheritor of the demon god race's cultivation was too strong. The restriction that had already collapsed could not withstand such a strong power. Therefore, only cultivators at the transcendent god level could enter, and Su Jiyu thought that Kang Shinmu was the best candidate. On one hand, his battle prowess was considered very strong among the transcendent gods, and on the other hand, he had a power that was similar to the restriction's aura. Of course, there were some differences between their powers, so Su Jiyu did not think that the restriction had any intimate connection with Kang Shinmu. She could not think of any other way, so after discussing it with Su Er, she brought Kang Shinmu over to take a look. If you think it's too inconvenient, you don't have to go in. Anyway, no one can solve this restriction at the moment. Chapter 55-44. Soon, Kang Shinmu and Su Jiyu came to the front of the stone tablet. Waves of pitch-black devouring power formed a black fog, spreading out from the restriction under the stone tablet, constantly eroding the gravel and dead trees in the valley. Everything in the valley was shrouded in darkness. Arriving here, Kang Shinmu faintly felt an indescribable attraction coming from the restriction. It was as if there was a voice constantly telling him to quickly enter the restriction. The more this was so, the more vigilant Kang Shinmu became. At this point, the Black Dragon Consciousness and Demon Knight Consciousness had already stopped quarreling, because they both realized that Kang Shinmu did not seem to be listening to them. Kang Shinmu obviously had his own judgment about this restriction. Previously in the Dragon's Sealing Abyss in the Dragon Martial Continent, I almost died. Now, is this restriction the same? Kang Shinmu closed his eyes to rest. Through his intuition, he felt the power of this restriction. Obviously, compared to the Dragon's Sealing Abyss, the devouring power here was much weaker. It was not even on the same level. In the Dragon's Sealing Abyss, Kang Shinmu and the others could even use its power to strengthen themselves, but not here. There was no such feeling. This restriction is different from the Dragon's Sealing Abyss. Even if they are of the same nature, the difference in strength is huge. Imagine, if the restriction in the Dragon's Sealing Abyss loosened like this, the entire Dragon Martial Continent would probably be destroyed. But this restriction doesn't have that kind of power. Kang Shinmu analyzed this through his intuition and perception. He opened his eyes. This restriction was far less powerful than the dragon's sealing abyss. Even if it sealed the power related to the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon, he could still deal with it. I can go in and try. He thought to himself and made a decision. He did not make such a risky decision rashly, but because he had a lot of trump cards, mainly the starry sky small world. At this moment, he could feel that the starry sky small world in his body was somewhat restless. The starry sky minor world is the origin of the power of the starry sky. Why would the restriction become restless in the face of the devouring power? Kang Shinmu could not understand. But since the starry sky small world had given him such a signal, there was no need for him to retreat. If the starry sky pocket world was the source of the starry sky inheritance, then Kang Shinmu was the core of the inheritance. If something happened to Kang Shinmu in this restriction, wouldn't the inheritance of the starry sky's power be cut off? Therefore, Kang Shinmu believed that the starry sky pocket world would not harm him. Auntie, please go back first. I'll go in and take a look. I don't know how long it will take to come out. Kang Shinmu said to Su Jiyu. It's fine, I'll wait for you outside. Su Jiyu pursed her lips and smiled. She did not intend to go back first. Anyway, she was not in a hurry to practice now. She would not lose anything by waiting for Kang Shinmu here. At her current level of cultivation, if she wanted to improve her realm, she could not rely on hard work. The most important thing was to have an epiphany in a day and night. If there was no opportunity for an epiphany, it would be difficult to break through the realm no matter how long she cultivated in seclusion. Kang Shinmu nodded to Su Jiyu. He did not say much about her wanting to wait for him outside. This was also a way for her to show her concern for him. If Su Jiyu had sent Kang Shinmu here and left, it would have been impolite. It should be noted that Kang Shinmu would face an extremely dangerous challenge if he entered the restriction. He might even die inside. You must be careful. If you can't do it, leave immediately. Su Jiyu reminded him one last time. Okay. Kang Shinmu nodded seriously. Then, he walked toward the restriction on the stone stele. As he walked toward the stele, the black dragon consciousness and the demon ancestor consciousness in his body became a little nervous. The devouring power grew thicker and thicker around him. The pitch-black fog of devouring slowly enveloped him. Kang Shinmu felt as if he had entered a valley filled with black fog. He could not see the light of day. Gradually, the surrounding pitch-black devouring power even enveloped his entire body. He could not see his fingers in front of him. He could not see the light of day. At this moment, he felt as if he had arrived in another space, the space suppressed by the stone stele. It's indeed the aura of devouring power, and it's very thick. Kang Shinmu sensed the power around him. He lifted his hands slightly and felt himself sinking into a viscous sea of devouring. His casual movement caused the devouring power in his body to resonate with it. It seems harmless to me. Can I devour this devouring power? Kang Shinmu carefully tried. Soon, he discovered that he could really devour the devouring power. As the pitch-black, viscous devouring power was devoured by Kang Shinmu, the devouring power in his body became even purer. The devouring power can be considered my innate talent. It was the cornerstone of my innate talent in the inheritance of the dragon warrior. Now, this vast amount of devouring power seems to be able to strengthen my devouring innate talent. Kang Shinmu felt his entire body becoming stronger. The devouring power in his body even became more profound, making him feel as if he was losing control of it. Suddenly, he felt as if the devouring power in his body was about to break free from his control and finally stop devouring. As he stopped devouring, the surrounding devouring power suddenly retreated in all directions. It shrunk rapidly in one direction. That's the source of the devouring power. Kang Shinmu's expression changed slightly. In this dark space, he moved toward the source of the devouring power. Soon, he felt a terrifying aura of a giant dragon coming from the front. The shadow of a boundless divine dragon seemed to appear in front of him. It was dark in front of him, but he had this feeling. Of course, the terrifying divine dragon was not a real entity. It was just an image. Even so, it was shocking enough. It seems to be the obsession of the chaotic sky-devouring dragon. Break it. Kang Shinmu punched forward with the power of the small starry sky world. The flickering power of the stars almost scattered the pitch-black devouring mist. Immediately afterward, he saw that in the void in front of him, a pitch-black dragon scale had appeared as the power of the stars shone. The majestic divine dragon image that he had imagined did not appear. Instead, a piece of dragon scale that seemed to be infinitely ancient appeared in front of him. This is the dragon scale of the chaotic sky-devouring dragon. Chapter 55-45. A pitch-black dragon scale that contained the aura of endless years appeared in front of Kang Shinmu. The dragon scale exuded a terrifying devouring aura. This aura was shocking. It was as if a terrifying existence was staring at him and he was shrouded by the heavy pressure of heaven and earth. Fortunately, Kang Shinmu's starry sky inheritance power came from the starry sky small world. This was the cornerstone of the starry sky inheritance. It was a sacred item and also a small world. As he punched out, the power of the entire starry sky small world gathered and blasted the darkness in front of him. Devour. Seeing the pitch-black dragon scale appear, Kang Shinmu did not hesitate and swept over it with his devouring power. The fundamental purpose of this restriction in the demon god Great World was to suppress this pitch-black dragon scale. Unfortunately, with the passage of time, the devouring power of this dragon scale gradually devoured the restriction and slowly spread to the surroundings. Given time, when this dragon scale completely broke through the restriction, its pure devouring power would probably devour the surrounding area. Perhaps after a long enough time, the entire demon god Great World would completely disappear. This was the power of devouring. Even one of the dragon scales of the chaotic sky devouring dragon had the terrifying power to devour the entire world. If the restriction completely disappeared, the power of the dragon scale would break through to the outside world and devour more heaven and earth powers. Its devouring power would become stronger and stronger. At that time, even Kang Shinmu would find it difficult to deal with this existence. But now, the dragon scale of the chaotic sky devouring dragon had not broken through the restriction. Its devouring power lingered within the restriction, unable to devour more heaven and earth spirit chi and material powers. It did not have much power. Come on. Kang Shinmu's devouring power swept towards the dragon scale. At the same time, he raised his hand and the power of the starry sky inheritance surged into his devouring power. As the energy of the starry sky small world condensed, his devouring power completely covered the dragon scale. Then, it devoured it. An incomparably terrifying confrontation erupted at this moment. Originally, Kang Shinmu was a little unsure if he could deal with the dragon scale of the chaotic sky devouring dragon. But now, he was certain, he could contend against this dragon scale. The fundamental reason was that he possessed the same devouring power, and the divine dragon bloodline in his body was already the inherited bloodline of the chaotic sky-devouring dragon. This gave him a natural ability to assimilate the dragon scales. However, Kang Shinmu did not dare to directly devour all the power of the dragon scale. Otherwise, if the consciousness of the chaotic heaven-swallowing dragon was still in the dragon scale, he might not be able to withstand it. He hadn't forgotten what he had encountered in the dragon's sealing abyss. Hence, the starry sky small world was where he stored the power of the dragon scales that he had devoured. Not only could he avoid the consciousness that might exist in the dragon scales from affecting him, but he could also use the starry sky small world. He could also use the power of the dragon scale to try to unlock the multiple seals of the starry sky small world and further release the power of the small world. Devour. Development. Kang Shinmu shouted, and a small starry sky world emerged from his wrist. The surrounding energy that had been devoured by his devouring power all turned into a storm vortex that swept towards the small starry sky world. Originally, there were still some cultivators cultivating the inheritance power of the starry sky in the small starry sky world. At this moment, when the devouring power surged into the small starry sky world, the entire world seemed to shake, and the spatial fluctuations swept into the interior of the small starry sky world. Kang Shinmu protected the key areas of the small starry sky world, and then dispersed the devouring power in all directions, expanding further away. Spatial cracks appeared one after another, and the entire miniature world was filled to the brim. The chaotic force that came from the dragon's scale was practically incomparable. More and more seals were broken in the small starry sky world, more and more devouring power surged in. As the power of the dragon scale was devoured, more seals in the small starry sky world were broken and unlocked. In the end, the 7th layer of seals completely collapsed. The entire area of the small starry sky world became even more vast, expanding by at least 100 times, and a large, incomparably barren, pitch-black space appeared. There was nothing in this space now. The devouring power that the dragon scale had transformed into was dispersed throughout the small starry sky world. Because of the vastness of the area, and because Kang Shinmu had already integrated his own devouring power. Therefore, the devouring this time was more beneficial than detrimental to the small starry sky world, as it directly unlocked many seals. There was no doubt that the small starry sky world was a sacred object of heaven and earth, and the power it could contain was quite terrifying. After all, it was the ultimate sacred object of the ancient human race's inheritance power, and it could eventually grow into a vast great world similar to the great worlds of the dragon gods and the demon gods. Of course, this would also leave hidden dangers in the small starry sky world. After all, the devouring power of the dragon scale had scattered throughout the space. Currently, the power of the small starry sky world, together with Kang Shinmu's own devouring power, could suppress it. But if there was another dragon scale, or even more dragon scales, the devouring power would become even stronger, and it was very likely that the small starry sky world would not be able to suppress it. Once the true yang came, the entire small starry sky world was likely to be devoured, and instead become nutrients for the devouring power. Therefore, Kang Shinmu had to be careful. With my current cultivation level, being able to suppress this dragon scale is already the best I can do. If there is another dragon scale, the small starry sky world is very likely to collapse, Kang Shinmu thought to himself and shook his head. He had to be mentally prepared for this. But now, he still had absolute control over the power of that dragon scale. It was not only because of himself, but also because the power of the small starry sky world was connected to him, and the two combined to give him such power. Therefore, for now, he could only seal the dragon scale in the small starry sky world. Other than that, he did not have any other reliable way to deal with this dragon scale. Now, the ending was a happy one. Kang Shinmu obtained the dragon scale of the chaotic heaven devouring dragon, and together with the power of the small starry sky world, he suppressed it. Moreover, he used its power for his own use, breaking through the many layers of seals of the small starry sky world, so that this sacred object of heaven and earth could erupt with even stronger power. Around the small starry sky world, there was a large space of barren nothingness. And then, under Kang Shinmu's will, the continent of the small starry sky world expanded. This small starry sky world will gradually become a real world. Just like the two great worlds of the dragon gods and the demon gods. The living beings in it will be able to cultivate the power of the starry sky inheritance, and gradually develop into a race. Kang Shinmu was a little emotional. This kind of thing that carried forward a legacy gave people a sacred sense of mission. After all, this was the power of the human race. Chapter 55-46. At this moment, Kang Shinmu possessed the extreme 10 Devil Seal and the Starry Small World, two sacred treasures. Among them, the extreme 10 Devil Seal was unlocked with the help of the Su clan. 5 layers of the seal were unlocked, and it possessed the power of an early-stage Supreme Realm expert. The Starry Small World was even stronger. Due to the assimilation of the Dragon Scale, the first 7 layers were all unlocked. This meant that the Starry Small World could already explode with the power of a mid-stage Supreme Realm expert. If the 8th layer was unlocked, its power could even be compared to a late-stage Supreme Realm expert. As for the 9th layer, it could even surpass the existence of a Supreme Realm expert and reach the most terrifying level. This was the reason why a Saint-grade item was an extremely important display resource for every race. This time, after I get rid of this restriction, the Su clan should be able to help me undo the remaining seals of the Extreme 10 Devil Seal. Kang Shinmu thought. Even if it was a sacred treasure with 9 layers unlocked, and it possessed explosive power that surpassed all Supreme Realm experts, this sacred treasure was still something that Kang Shinmu could use. However, after the sacred treasure's power was exhausted, it was not so easy to recharge it. Even peak-level cultivators like Emperor Shi and Su Jiyu would need at least 1 or 2 months to fully replenish their energy after they used up all the energy in the divine treasures of heaven and earth with 9 layers of engravings. For Kang Shinmu, it would probably take a few years to fully recharge it. This was very difficult to bear. Fortunately, for Kang Shinmu, he basically did not need to use the power of the Extreme 10 Devil Seal. He mainly used it for self-defense, as a safeguard and a trump card. Soon, when the dragon scale and the restriction was taken away by Kang Shinmu, the restriction seemed to detect that the dragon scale's power was gone, and finally dissipated naturally. The scene in front of Kang Shinmu slowly changed. What appeared in front of him was still the valley from before, but the entire valley seemed to have changed. Originally, the valley was filled with dead trees and a scene of desolation. The devouring power spread everywhere. But now, the devouring power was gone. Instead, it was covered in a thick layer of snowflakes, decorating the entire valley like a white snowfield. Although it was snowing, the various plants and creatures in the valley were more prosperous than before. What's going on? Kang Shinmu was a little surprised. But soon, he saw a familiar figure leaning on a small rock not far away. That figure seemed to be resting. Sui. Kang Shinmu recognized the figure at a glance and couldn't help but feel surprised. He leapt out and landed in front of the figure. Why are you here? Kang Shinmu asked. You're back? Sui, who was resting against a rock in the snow, heard Kang Shinmu's voice and opened her eyes. When she saw his figure, she couldn't believe it. You're finally back. I'm not dreaming, am I? Sui could not help but stand up and pounce towards Kang Shinmu. What happened? Kang Shinmu's expression changed slightly. He could feel that Sui was a little emotional, but this shouldn't be the case. In next to no time, he comforted the young woman, and then he found out about something from her. It turned out that 3 months had actually passed since he'd entered the restriction this time. It's been 3 months? It's actually snowing in this valley? Kang Shinmu looked around and felt a sense of loss. He clearly felt that after entering the restriction and devouring the dragon scale, it wouldn't take much time and he would be out very quickly. But he didn't expect that 3 months had passed outside. Since so much time had passed, Su Jiyu naturally went back. After all, Su Jiyu's identity was there, and she couldn't keep waiting for Kang Shinmu. As for Sui, because she was worried about Kang Shinmu, she came here to cultivate and improve her cultivation while waiting for Kang Shinmu. Not long after Kang Shinmu entered, the terrifying dark aura dissipated, and the restriction also gradually disappeared. Therefore, they also knew that Kang Shinmu had probably succeeded. However, for some reason, Kang Shinmu still hadn't walked out of the restriction. Thus, Sui continued to wait here, and this wait went on for 3 whole months. As for Su Jiyu, she would come to check on the situation every few days. Su Jiyu also felt a little guilty. If Kang Shinmu never appeared again, she would blame herself very much. Fortunately, Kang Shinmu had finally appeared. Moreover, for Kang Shinmu, it hadn't been that long. After such a long time, Kang Shinmu seemed to have a deeper understanding of the inheritance of the power of the starry sky. As a result, his understanding of the power of the void became more profound, and he even seemed to be able to integrate with the surrounding space. Obtaining a dragon scale has allowed me to improve so much. The cultivation of the power of the starry sky has finally reached the fourth level of the transcendent God stage. Kang Shinmu was a little emotional. The power of the dragon scale was a super strong power that he could devour and absorb. Moreover, it would not cause him any backlash at all. It was a pity that the power of the dragon scale was too strong. He had to work with the small starry sky to suppress its power, as well as the consciousness of the chaotic sky-devouring dragon that might exist within it. If I become stronger, I can find more dragon scales. This way, I can improve even faster. However, even if it's just absorbing the spiritual energy of the world, I can still try to unlock the seal of the small starry sky in a place with extremely dense spiritual energy of the world. Kang Shinmu was also relatively clear about his future goals. Immediately after, he returned to the Su royal family with Su Yi, Su Jiyu, Su Er, and many other important figures of the Su royal family came out to welcome him. From this, it could be seen that they also attached great importance to Kang Shinmu's identity. Now, Kang Shinmu was incomparably important to the Su royal family. On one hand, his relationship with Su Yi made Kang Shinmu's identity special. On the other hand, Kang Shinmu was, after all, a genius expert from the great world of the dragon gods. If something happened to him in the great world of the demon gods, they really couldn't explain it. It was very likely that there would be bad consequences. But fortunately, Kang Shinmu finally returned. In these 3 months, Su Er could be said to have faced a lot of pressure. Not only from the great world of the dragon gods, but also from the other royal families of the demon gods. After all, a person like Kang Shinmu had suddenly disappeared. Who would not suspect the Su royal family? Immediately after, Kang Shinmu continued to stay in the Su royal family. Jiang Shenwu taught Su Jiyu some techniques related to the 16-winged heavenly demon gods' combat cultivation laws. This was the core of the 16-winged heavenly demon gods' inheritance. Jiang Shenwu taught Su Jiyu with reservations. Chapter 55-47. Winter passed and spring came. Kang Shinmu had been in the great demon god world for almost a year. After returning from the restriction, Su Jiyu once again took away the supreme 10-directional devil seal to fight for cultivation resources for him and to unseal the seal. Since there weren't many cultivation resources left in the Su dynasty, this time, several months passed before the last 4 layers of the extreme 10-directional demonic seal were unlocked. When Kang Shinmu obtained the extreme 10-directional devil seal again, this sacred item already possessed power that surpassed the limits of the supreme realm. Unfortunately, Kang Shinmu was too weak. Once he used up the power of the extreme 10-directional devil seal, he would need at least a few years to replenish its energy. This was the difficulty of obtaining a sacred item that transcended too many levels. However, he could use the power of the extreme 10-directional devil seal multiple times. If he did not use it all at once, he could still use it many times. If he wanted to quickly recover its power, there was only one way. After returning, he would need experts of Su Jiyu's level to help replenish its energy. Even for a powerhouse of her level, it would take at least a month or 2 to replenish the power of the supreme 10-directional devil seal. So, Kang Shinmu did not want to trouble experts of their level too much. Although Su Jiyu and Emperor Shi would be happy to replenish the power of the extreme 10-directional devil seal as long as Kang Shinmu mentioned it, he really could not trouble them with this. If it was not necessary, he would try not to use the power of the extreme 10-directional devil seal. If he could defeat his opponent with his own strength, he would try to use his own strength. The existence of the extreme 10-directional devil seal was more like a safeguard for Kang Shinmu. It was a crucial trump card in the most desperate times. Moreover, the fewer people who knew about this trump card, the better. Currently, only Su Jiyu, Su Yu, and at most Su Yi and Su Yi knew that he had the extreme 10-directional devil seal. Even if others knew that he had the extreme 10-directional devil seal, they did not know that he had already unlocked all 9 layers of the seal. So, this was his most hidden trump card. And Kang Shinmu's own cultivation level of the demon god race had also improved significantly. The spiritual aura of heaven and earth where the Su dynasty was located was extremely dense. In addition, Kang Shinmu had devoured the ancient body of the demonic god ancestor, Moyi, so he would not encounter any bottlenecks on his way. Half a year ago, when he participated in the royal family ranking competition, Kang Shinmu was only at the second or third tier of the transcendent god realm. But now, he had already reached the fifth level of the supreme god realm. This was because he paid more attention to the consolidation of his own combat strength and did not blindly increase his cultivation. Otherwise, he would have reached the sixth or even the seventh tier of the supreme god realm. Of course, even at the fifth level of the transcendent god realm, Kang Shinmu's combat power was almost close to the peak of the transcendent god realm. Ordinary cultivators at the peak of the supreme god realm were no match for Kang Shinmu. He would often fight with many experts of the Su dynasty. These experts were no longer of the younger generation, but of the generation of Su Yi's uncles. They were already charging towards the supreme god realm. However, in sparring, Kang Shinmu could already contend against experts of this level. Moreover, the other party had already obtained at least the 14-winged combat cultivation rule. After a short period of development, many experts of the Su dynasty had already mastered the 14-winged combat cultivation rule. They could use more than 90% of the power of inheritance. As for the 16-winged combat cultivation rule, Kang Shinmu knew that Su Jiyu had already mastered it. As for the others, even Su Er had not completely mastered it. However, this had nothing to do with Kang Shinmu. In any case, Su Jiyu would teach this technique to others. Originally, Kang Shinmu had planned to stay in the demon god race Great World for a period of time. He would fight steadily and strive to have the ability to fight against experts at the early stage of the demon god race Great World. But at this moment, a piece of news came from the dragon god race Great World. There was an accident in the dragon martial continent. This was not a small matter for Kang Shinmu. After all, he had risen all the way from the dragon martial continent. He could not just watch the dragon martial continent suffer a disaster, could he? Therefore, he had to go back. This time, he did not go back alone. Instead, he brought Su Yi, the little princess of the Su dynasty. This was the intention of Su Jiyu and Su Er, and Su Yi also wanted to go to the dragon martial continent with Kang Shinmu. They had met in the dragon martial continent by chance, so Su Yi also had a special feeling for the dragon martial continent. Before going back, Kang Shinmu summarized. Now, his combat power in the demon god race had actually surpassed the combat power of the dragon god race. Recently, his cultivation in the dragon god race had not fallen behind, but because of the lack of cultivation resources, there was not that much dragon mark energy for him to devour in the demon god race Great World. Therefore, he could only use the dragon mark energy that he had devoured in the past to improve. After continuous effort, he still reached the third level of the super dragon. But compared to the fifth level of the super demon god, there was still a big gap. After going back, try not to use the power of the super demon god's inheritance. After all, in the dragon god race, I still rely on the power of the dragon god race's inheritance. Kang Shinmu had a good grasp of this point. He had to be clear about his priorities. His dragon god race's inheritance was the foundation, and it was related to the grade of the chaotic sky-devouring dragon's inheritance. If he kept ignoring the cultivation of the dragon god race, his devouring power would not grow. This time, the dragon martial continent had suffered a sudden change, and Kang Shinmu could use the power of the dragon god race's inheritance. But the most important thing at the moment was what was going on in the dragon martial continent. It should be known that there were many seniors and friends that Kang Shinmu cared about in the dragon martial continent. For example, Dragon Emperor Yen. And the Dean of Donghuang Yangwu College, Yu Yaji. And so on. And in the various dragon martial academies, Kang Shinmu also knew some young friends. Although they had not yet reached the level of the dragon god race's great world, they were acquaintances after all. If something happened to them, Kang Shinmu would definitely not feel good. We have to go back. Kang Shinmu took Su Yi and finally returned to the dragon god race with Su Zhiyu's power. Holy Lands of 5 Extremes Dark Ice. Kang Shinmu and Su Yi returned together and met Emperor Shi Divine Dragon. From Emperor Shi Divine Dragon, he learned about the current situation of the Dragon Martial Continent. The situation of the Dragon Martial Continent was not optimistic. For some reason, an ancient power had sealed the Dragon Martial Continent. It was like a layer of bubbles. If it encountered a supreme power, it was likely to collapse along with the Dragon Martial Continent. And under the seal of that power, many demons from the void appeared. These demons seemed to be the embodiment of some ancient power. They were no longer the void demons that the demon god race had tamed. Chapter 55-48. Kang Shinmu had not returned to the Dragon Martial Continent for a long time. He did not expect such a situation to occur this time. In the void outside the Dragon Martial Continent, cracks appeared everywhere. And the demonic creatures that emerged from these cracks seemed to be the embodiment of some ancient power. After appearing, they went straight to the sealing dragon abyss of the Yen Dragon Emperor dynasty. This was completely unexpected to Kang Shinmu. Is it because I swallowed the chaotic sky-devouring dragon's dragon scale? Kang Shinmu also did not understand the situation. At present, the Dragon Martial Continent had been sealed by some ancient power. This seal was like a bubble, preventing supreme experts from entering. If they forced their way in, it was likely that the Dragon Martial Continent would collapse. Let's go back first. It happened suddenly, but the 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice Holy Land and the other Holy Lands reacted quickly. They had already sent many elite disciples to the Dragon Martial Continent to help. Among them, there were many experts of the 9th level of the Super Dragon Continent. In the 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice Holy Land, many elders were at the 9th level of the Super Dragon Continent. For them, to break through to the supreme level, they still needed some time. Below the supreme level, they were the strongest existence. Each of them had extremely powerful means, and some powerful holy items, dragon weapons, and so on. Currently, the situation had stabilized. However, Jiang Shenwu had heard that the number of demonic creatures coming out from the cracks in the void was increasing. Even if the many seniors joined hands to resist them, they would not be able to hold them off. Yen Dragon City. Kang Shinmu first returned to the 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice City and saw his master, Emperor Shi. Then he brought Su Yi back to the Dragon Martial Continent's Yen Dragon City. After this incident, everyone in the Devouring Dragon group had returned to the Dragon Martial Continent. This was not only Kang Shinmu's hometown, but also the hometown of everyone in the Devouring Dragon group. Even if they went to the Dragon God's world and had better prospects for development, they could not abandon their hometown. To them, it was everyone's responsibility to protect their hometown. Therefore, Li Xian, Wang Yuer, and the Yun sisters had all returned to the Dragon Martial Continent and formed teams to patrol everywhere. At the same time, the 3 girls, Gu Yusheng, Yu Tianchang, and Feng Ligei, had also returned from the macro world of the Dragon Gods. Many disciples of the 5 Extreme Dark Ice Holy Land also returned with them. Many of the 5 Extreme Dark Ice Holy Land's disciples were 7th grade and 8th grade disciples. Even though they were not as strong as the 9th grade disciples who were at the peak of the Super Divine Dragon realm, their battle prowess was not to be underestimated. This time, the participants were much stronger than Kang Shinmu during the Demon God ranking tournament. They were all peak Supreme God level existences. Moreover, Kang Shinmu did not dare to use the extreme 10-directional devil seal carelessly. After all, it was a tyrannical power that surpassed supreme experts. If he used too much of it, it was very likely that the entire Martial Dragon continent would collapse. The ancient power that enveloped the entire Martial Dragon continent had become the key factor restricting the development of the power. While countless transcendent experts headed to the Martial Dragon continent to fight against the demonic beasts, Emperor Shi, the Divine Dragon, and many other supreme experts stood guard in the void outside the Martial Dragon continent. They stood guard outside the ancient power, preventing any supreme experts from forcibly invading the Martial Dragon continent. At this time, when the dragon gods were in danger, it was very easy for other seeds to take advantage of the situation. Yen Dragon City. When Kang Shinmu returned, the Yen Dragon Emperor was no longer in Yen Dragon City. Instead, he was clearing the demonic beasts outside. The Yen Dragon Emperor had already reached the peak of the Dragon Emperor realm and was not far from becoming a super divine dragon. However, he still guarded the Yen Dragon Emperor and did not leave even half a step. Now, he was even leading the charge to clear the demonic beasts outside. It was said that the results were remarkable. With the help of the 4 dragon martial academies, they finally defended the Sealing Dragon Abyss. No one knew why these demonic beasts wanted to enter the Sealing Dragon Abyss. However, they could not let these demonic beasts enter. Everyone had a bad feeling. If there were too many demonic beasts and they entered the Sealing Dragon Abyss, it was very likely that the consequences would be disastrous. What a strong devouring power aura. Kang Shinmu had just returned to Yen Dragon City with Su Yi when he felt that the entire space was filled with a strong devouring power aura. As far as the eye could see, there was a lot of black devouring power floating in the sky, moving along with the rolling clouds. It really has something to do with the chaotic heaven devouring dragon. Kang Shinmu thought to himself. He said to Su Yi, "Let's go to the Sealing Dragon Abyss to take a look." He did not have many acquaintances in Yen Dragon City. The people that Kang Shinmu knew were already clearing the demonic beasts everywhere in the Dragon Martial Continent. The strength of the demonic beasts varied. There were Dragon King level, Dragon Emperor level, and Supreme God level. Basically, one could tell from their aura if they were a match for the demonic beasts. If they could win, they would fight. If they couldn't, they would run. And the demonic beasts would not chase after them. They were all heading toward the Sealing Dragon Abyss. Kang Shinmu brought Su Yi and rushed toward the Sealing Dragon Abyss as fast as he could. Along the way, he suddenly felt a few familiar auras, which made Kang Shinmu's heart skip a beat. Let's go and take a look. Before Kang Shinmu had gone far with Su Yi, he saw a few powerful demonic beasts running in front of a dense forest. They were all running toward the Sealing Dragon Abyss. The leader of these demonic beasts even had the combat power of a Supreme God level 3. And the one chasing after them was Li Xian, Wang Yuer, the sisters Yunyiru and Yunyue. The entire devouring dragon corps had a total of more than 60 people, and they were all together. Under the leadership of Shangguan Dai, they were chasing after the group of demonic beasts. Shangguan Dai led the entire devouring dragon corps and nurtured it. However, even Shangguan Dai herself was only at the 2nd tier of Super Dragon realm. How could it be easy to fight against the strongest Supreme God level 3 demonic beasts? Of course, Kang Shinmu's current realm was not very high, but his combat power was much stronger than the average person's. Seeing Li Xian, Wang Yuer, and the rest transform into dragons and chase after some small demonic beasts that had fallen behind, Kang Shinmu could not help but smile. These guys were still very hardworking. The demonic beasts that they chose as opponents were all 1 or 2 tiers higher than them. Then, they would surround and attack them in groups of 3 to 5. It could be seen that they were cooperating well with each other. Their attacks were well coordinated, and they were good at both offense and defense. Even if they surrounded a demonic beast that was 1 or 2 tiers higher than them, they were still able to do it with ease. They even seemed to be suppressing it. Fortunately, the target of this group of demonic beasts was not them but the Sealing Dragon Abyss. Otherwise, they would not be able to stop this group of demonic beasts. However, the moment Kang Shinmu arrived, a roar that pierced through the sky suddenly came from the depths of the dense forest below. Chapter 55-49. It happened suddenly. As soon as the 5th level transcendent god demonic creature appeared, it charged toward the divine dragon body that Li Xian and the others had transformed into. It brought with it a demonic aura that filled the sky, like a dark cloud pressing down on a city, sweeping over. Be careful. Shangguan Dai was the first to react. The divine dragon body that she had transformed into swept across the sky, erupting with the power of endless heavenly fire to affect the demonic creature that had suddenly appeared. However, she knew very well that she could not resist that demonic creature. The 5th level of the transcendent god realm far exceeded her current cultivation realm. Therefore, she only wanted to use this to buy time for Li Xian and the others to escape. If she was not careful, she might die here. Teacher. The expressions of Li Xian and the others changed drastically. They all respected Shangguan Dyer very much. However, they did not expect that Shangguan Dyer would actually block that super-powerful demonic creature for them. Naturally, they were not willing to escape directly. Let's attack together and block the attack for teacher. More than 50 dragon warriors did not retreat at this moment. Instead, they swarmed forward and followed closely behind Shangguan Dyer. Their cultivation realm was not long after that of the Dragon Emperor. They were still far from the level of the Super Shinran. However, they did not retreat. Instead, they all moved forward and surrounded Shangguan Dyer's divine dragon body, injecting all kinds of talent power into her heavenly fire power. A burst of super powerful energy weaved by everyone fused with Shangguan Dyer's power. At this moment, Shangguan Dyer was a little touched. However, she knew very well that even with the power of so many people fused together, it would still be very difficult to resist the attack of the demonic creature in front of them. At the next moment, the power of the demonic creature came crashing down. A terrifying and trembling pressure came crashing down like Mount Tai. The barrier that everyone had gathered to form the power of the divine dragon shattered like porcelain and scattered in all directions. It's over. Li Xian could not help but shout. The pressure he felt was too strong, completely beyond the level that he could resist at this level. Even if dozens of people gathered together, the combined power would not be able to resist a single attack from the other party. After all, that was a 5th level transcendent god realm demonic creature. And they were only at the level of the Dragon Emperor. Only Shangguan Dai had broken through to the level of a super mystical dragon. However, she alone was not enough. If everyone worked together, they would barely be able to hold on for a while. But defeat was only a matter of time. Why did such a monster suddenly appear? Shangguan Dai was extremely anxious. Even if something happened to her, it would be fine. However, the devouring dragon group was made up of elites hand-picked by Kang Xinmu. If they all died here, it would be a huge loss to Kang Xinmu. She had let Kang Xinmu down. Before this happened, she was sure that there was no such monster around. However, she had no idea why this demonic creature would suddenly appear. At this moment, just as the demonic creature's boundless demonic chi was about to crush Shangguan Dai, and the others, all of a sudden, another burst of demonic energy appeared in front of them. It blocked the demonic creature's power and the dragon god's inheritance power. It seemed to be another type of devil chi energy. However, it was obvious that it was here to help them. When the dozens of divine dragons raised their heads in shock, what they saw was a slender 16-winged heavenly demon god. 16 demonic wings extended in all directions, emitting an endless amount of demonic aura, which turned into countless wings of demonic aura, blocking the force of the demonic creature. With a loud bang, the surrounding space seemed to split open. The demonic chi surged out in all directions. It's someone from the demon god race. Shangguan Dai's expression changed slightly. She had seen quite a lot of the demon god race, but she did not have a deep impression of them. Of course, she was not too worried now. After all, the demon god race had blocked the strongest attack of a 5th-tier transcendent god race demonic creature for them. It was equivalent to saving their lives. They should not have any ill intentions towards them. Everyone, long time no see. At this moment, a familiar voice sounded from behind them. It was Kang Xinmu with a faint smile. He appeared in front of them with his hands behind his back. It's boss? When Li Xian saw this, his divine dragon body suddenly returned to his human form. His face was filled with shock and surprise. He admired Kang Shinmu greatly. He had not seen Kang Shinmu for a long time. He did not expect to see him again at such a tense time. Shinwu, you're here? The moment Shangguan Dai saw Kang Shinmu, she heaved a sigh of relief. With Kang Shinmu around, the situation should be stable, right? She did not know how strong Kang Shinmu's battle prowess was, but a while ago, Kang Shinmu had gone to the demon god race. Thinking about it, the expert from the demon god race who helped was probably brought by Kang Shinmu. The slender expert from the demon god race began to fight fiercely with the 5th-tier transcendent god race demonic creature. She quickly suppressed the demonic creature. Shangguan Dai, and the other members of the devouring dragon group finally relaxed completely. Shinwu, who is that? She observed the slender body of the 16-winged heavenly demon god fighting with the powerful demonic creature and constantly suppressing it. She was a little curious. It's Su Yi. Kang Shinmu introduced her. Hearing this name, Shangguan Dai understood. This was the little princess of the Su royal family of the demon god race. This time, she actually came with Kang Shinmu. She had originally thought that it would be some expert from the Su royal family. In the end, it was just the little princess. Su Yi is actually so strong? Shangguan Dai looked at the battle in front of her and felt that it was a little unbelievable. Wasn't this improvement too fast? Under her careful perception, she discovered that Su Yi seemed to be only at the 3rd-tier transcendent god race, but facing the 5th-tier transcendent god race demonic creature, she actually felt no pressure. She even repeatedly pushed the demonic creature back, and it looked like she would soon be completely suppressed. This battle prowess was truly heaven-defying. Will she be fine? Shangguan Dai could not help but remind him, the appearance of this demonic creature is too strange. Look, the surrounding demonic creatures are completely ignoring us. Only this demonic creature is directly charging at us. There might be a demonic rift nearby. Kang Shinmu thought for a moment and said. Right now, within the entire Dragon Martial continent, there might be demonic rifts everywhere. There might even be new demonic rifts appearing at any time. Therefore, it was not strange for demonic rifts to appear in this place. They just happened to run into one. They were just unlucky. However, it was also fortunate that Kang Shinmu and Su Yi had arrived in time. Otherwise, the situation would have been more dangerous. Leave this demonic creature to her. Kang Shinmu said to Shangguan Dai, all of you stay here and don't move for now. I'll go look around. Su Yi would definitely be able to deal with the 5th-tier transcendent god race demonic creature easily. In any case, there would not be any danger. After all, she still had the Chaos Spirit armor that had all 9 layers of inscriptions unlocked for defense. A mere 5th-tier transcendent god race demonic creature could not pose a threat to her at all. Kang Shinmu looked down. He could sense that there was a spatial rift with demonic creatures appearing nearby. Chapter 55-50. After Kang Shinmu left, Shangguan Dai, and the others all focused their attention on Su Yi. Her slender 16-winged heavenly fiend celestial body was emitting demonic aura, and her pitch-black heavenly fiend celestial wings were constantly flapping in the air. With waves of tremors in the void, the pitch-black demonic aura had already wrapped around her body tightly. The heavenly fiend celestial wings tempered her body. Under the endless demonic aura, her entire heavenly fiend celestial body was like an iron wall, blocking all the attacks from the demonic creature. 1,000 demon wing blades. Without any hesitation, Su Yi raised her mighty heavenly fiend celestial arm, and the heavenly fiend celestial wings on her back spread open. Countless demonic auras condensed into blades of light that swept towards the demonic creature. The demonic creature was a mass of black fog, and it was impossible to see its true appearance through the demonic aura. However, one could tell from its aura that its combat power was roughly at the level of a 5th-tier supreme god. At this moment, facing the attack of the 1,000 demon wing blades, the demonic creature was not afraid at all. The demonic aura on its body instantly erupted, forming a terrifying demonic aura vortex. This pitch-black devil chi vortex completely absorbed the 1,000-winged devil blades that were attacking from all directions, blocking Sui's attack. After all, Sui was only at the level of a third-tier supreme god, so her basic strength was definitely inferior to this demonic creature. However, immediately after, Sui raised her hand, and pitch-black chains began to surround her 16-winged heavenly fiend celestial body. Every time these pitch-black chains trembled, they would attract the surrounding void and absorb the demonic aura, regardless of whether it was her own strength or the power of the fifth-tier supreme god demonic creature. They were all absorbed by these long pitch-black chains. The chains wrapped around Sui's entire heavenly fiend celestial body, and then swept towards the demonic creature. This chain was a supreme god demonic weapon that she had been fiddling with for a long time, the 10,000 demon heavenly lock. There were more than 1,000 offensive battle runes engraved on it, and there were also hundreds of condensing battle runes that could condense all the power in the surroundings. At this moment, the pitch-black chain absorbed all the power in the surroundings, forming layers of densely packed cages that enveloped the fifth-tier supreme god demonic creature. Then, a terrifying power gathered in an instant and exploded. The fifth-level transcendent god realm demonic creature had no ability to resist at all. Under the terrifying suppression of the 10,000 demon heavenly lock absorbing the power of both sides, its body instantly exploded. Sui heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that the demonic creature was completely unable to resist his attack. Recently, she was also very clear about her disadvantage in battle. In terms of defense, he had the Chaos Spirit Armor, which was a super powerful Heaven and Earth Saint grade armor that could even withstand the super powerful attacks of a peak-level Supreme Master many times. But in terms of attack, it was still not enough. Most of the time, just relying on defense was useless, such as now. If she had not cultivated the 10,000 demons heaven lock recently, she might not have been able to do anything to that demonic creature. In a situation where she could not defeat her opponent with all kinds of demonic martial techniques, the 10,000 demons heaven lock was her last resort. This was her trump card. This was the most important aspect that allowed her to completely suppress the fifth-level transcendent god with her cultivation base at the third level of the supreme god realm. When she finally killed the monster, she heaved a sigh of relief. Behind them, Shengguan Dai quickly shouted out, "Careful." Sui immediately became alert. She realized that the demonic creature that she had killed with the 10,000 demons heaven lock had already exploded into a demonic vortex. However, at this moment, the demonic vortex self-destructed. A terrifying power exploded in an instant. The demonic creature had actually chosen to self-destruct. Shengguan Dai immediately transformed into a dragon and blocked Li Xian, Wang Yuer, and the other members of the devouring dragon group behind her with a solemn expression. The power of the demonic creature's self-destruction was too strong. Once it affected them, it was very likely that they would all be wiped out. Shengguan Dai did not expect that the demonic creature would have such a method. However, at this moment, demonic wings body refinement. Sui reacted immediately when she saw this. The 16 demonic wings behind her spread out, and countless demonic auras spread out in all directions. She protected Shengguan Dai and the others behind her. Then, Chaos Spirit Armor. A Heaven and Earth Saint grade armor emitted a 9-colored chaotic light from Sui's demonic god body, forming a layer of 9-colored flowing light that draped around her demonic god body. It even spread out and covered her heavenly demon god's feather. It spread out for a full 100 miles. With a loud bang, the power of the demonic creature's self-detonation almost formed a vortex of demonic aura. The terrifying power of the explosion almost shattered the space around it. It formed a tsunami-like wave of demonic aura that fell on the 9-colored chaotic flowing light. At this moment, the surrounding mountains and seas trembled. However, the power of Sui's Chaos Spirit Armor was completely stable, as if it had not suffered the slightest impact. This Chaos Spirit Armor was a super powerful Heaven and Earth Saint grade armor that had unlocked the power of the 9 layers of engraving. Its defensive ability was completely capable of withstanding several attacks from a peak supreme expert. Now, Su-Yi only casually used the power of the Chaos Spirit armor. She did not even dare to use too much of it. After all, the current dragon martial continent was too fragile. Once a supreme expert appeared, it would not be able to withstand it. Therefore, she only used 1% of the power. However, it was only 1% of the power. At this moment, it had completely withstood the power of the demonic creature's self-destruction, blocking all the explosions outside. After the demonic aura was blocked by the 9-colored chaotic flowing light, it spread out in all directions and quickly disappeared into the void. As for the 5th stage supreme god demonic creature, it had completely disappeared. The group of demonic creatures that Shangguan Dyer and the others had been chasing had already run far away. In the vicinity, there was only a dense aura of demonic aura and spatial power coming from the dense forest below. That was the direction that Kang Shinmu had gone in. Shangguan Dyer and the others finally heaved a sigh of relief after the unforeseen event. However, they quickly thought of Kang Shinmu. Kang Shinmu seemed to have gone to investigate below and said that he had sensed the aura of the demonic creature's crack. Was it true? If there really was a demonic creature's crack, with Kang Shinmu's ability, would he be able to resist it? Shangguan Dyer was very worried. After all, she could already see that Kang Shinmu's dragon god cultivation had just entered the super divine dragon realm not long ago. He had not even reached the 5th stage supreme god. It was impossible for him to be a match for a peak supreme god existence. Moreover, there might be more than one peak supreme god demonic creature in the demonic creature's crack. We don't have to go over and cause trouble for him. Su-Yi saw the worry on Shangguan Dyer's face. She turned around and said with a smile, "With our strength, we will only cause trouble for him if we go over. Let's retreat a little first so that we won't affect his performance." This was Su-Yi's understanding of Kang Shinmu. Chapter 55-52. When Su-Yi led the group to retreat, Kang Shinmu had already arrived near the crack in the demonic aura. Waves of devouring power and demonic aura continuously emerged from the front. However, the devouring power was not very strong, especially when compared to the dragon scale of the chaotic heaven devouring dragon that he had encountered in the great world of the demon god. It was far inferior. It was as if a wisp of devouring power had merged with the aura of an endless demonic creature. It broke through space and forced its way into the dragon martial continent. When Kang Shinmu came over, a demonic creature suddenly rushed over in front of him. Level 6 Transcendent God? Kang Shinmu was not afraid. Instead, he transformed into a huge pitch-black dragon that was tens of thousands of feet long. His dragon martial body instantly erupted. Like a long dragon shuttling through the sky, he charged toward the level 6 Transcendent God demonic creature. Curtain of Despair. A layer of pitch-black curtain of darkness formed around Kang Shinmu's huge black dragon body in an instant. Then, he collided with the demonic creature. The demonic creature was an irregularly shaped demonic beast formed from a mass of pitch-black demonic aura. 7 bamboo-like demonic aura arms pierced toward the divine dragon that Kang Shinmu had transformed into. They brought with them an incomparably sharp demonic aura and formed a sky full of saber lights. However, these demonic aura saber lights pierced Kang Shinmu's curtain of despair and were unable to break through it. On the contrary, after half of the power was devoured by the curtain of despair, they were all blocked outside. Dragon soul of extreme destructive heavenly might. Kang Shinmu released a terrifying high-grade super divine dragon martial skill as fast as he could. The pitch-black devouring power exploded from all directions and poured crazily onto the demonic creature. In an instant, the demonic aura exploded and the entire demonic creature was torn apart. Continue forward. Kang Shinmu's devouring power devoured all the surrounding demonic aura into the divine dragon's body. The black dragon's body became even deeper, as if it was immersed in an abyss. Its entire body emitted a cold and terrifying aura. The divine dragon moved forward. Soon, a pitch-black spatial crack appeared in front of Kang Shinmu. Monsters were emerging from the crack one after another, but most of them had yet to reach the transcendent god level. They were all king-level and emperor-level demonic beasts. Their combat power was not strong. Kang Shinmu didn't beat around the bush either. The divine dragon swung its tail upwards, and its devouring power spread out in all directions, almost enveloping the entire pitch-black space crack. The body-tempering super-divine dragon martial technique, the astral divine dragon art's astral divinity, spread out into the surroundings after merging with the devouring power. It enveloped the entire area. No demonic creature could break through this layer of godly astral energy. The devouring power began to spread in the encirclement. Furthermore, confine. Kang Shinmu flew over in his divine dragon form and used his understanding of the starry sky inheritance to seal up the entire space crack. Immediately, the space around the spatial crack solidified. It was just like how Senior Moya had sealed up the 5 spacetime formations outside Emperor Hua's inheritance. After Jiang Shenwu sealed the spatial crack, Jiang Shenwu's eyes lit up. No demonic creature could pass through the space crack and come to the Dragon Martial continent. In other words, it was equivalent to sealing up the space crack. Of course, this was not enough. If it were any other expert dealing with it, they would at most be able to seal up the space crack like he was doing now, rendering it ineffective. However, Kang Shinmu could do better. Because he was in existence with the devouring power. The devouring power spread. First, it devoured all the weak demonic creatures in the field. This allowed Kang Shinmu's divine dragon body to reach the highest level of resistance against such demonic creatures. Even demonic creatures above the 7th stage of the supreme god level would not be able to harm Kang Shinmu at all. Immediately after, the pitch-black devouring power surrounded and sealed up the entire space crack. The space crack emitted demonic energy, but at this moment, it was completely sealed up. Then, with the encirclement of the devouring power, the entire space crack began to be devoured. That's right. Kang Shinmu intended to completely solve this kind of space crack, and he could do it with the devouring power. If it were anyone else, they would have to spend at least a few days setting up formations to eliminate the existence of the space crack. However, Kang Shinmu did not need to do that at all. Devour. 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 Kang Shinmu did not stop and directly devoured the power of the entire space crack. Moreover, he also devoured and digested this part of the power. After all, this was a special power that contained the power of spacetime. For Kang Shinmu, after devouring and digesting it, he could completely improve his cultivation in terms of the power of the starry sky inheritance. After a while, the devouring power and demonic energy dissipated. The dense forest, which was originally pitch black, was restored to a patch of green. Many of the surrounding trees were gnawed by demonic creatures and became riddled with holes. However, the entire world finally became quiet again. It's finally done. Kang Shinmu deactivated the divine dragon form and finally breathed a sigh of relief. The devouring power was simply too useful now. Not only could he store the power he devoured, but he could also use it to resist the power of his opponents. He could even use it for his own cultivation. The power of the demonic creatures that he devoured became nutrients for Kang Shinmu to recover his strength. As for the space crack that he devoured, it became Kang Shinmu's cultivation in terms of the power of the starry sky inheritance. Is this the chaotic heaven devouring dragon? If I completely unlock its power, won't it really be able to destroy the entire world? At the same time, Kang Shinmu was still a little worried. This was simply too harmful to the world. This made him even more determined to absolutely not let the black dragon's consciousness in his body take over. Fortunately, the demon god ancestor, Demon Knight, was now restraining the black dragon's consciousness. Moreover, the dragon's scale was also restrained by the power of the starry sky small world. At present, there was no possibility of the black dragon's consciousness in his body turning over. Soon, he returned to Sui's side. He looked up and smiled at Shangguan Dai, and the others. Everyone, long time no see. Thank you for your hard work. Boss. You're really amazing. Li Xian immediately jumped up with a look of admiration. I've never heard of anyone who could completely deal with the demonic chi crack. I didn't expect you to do it so quickly. It's actually not difficult. It just takes time. I'm just a little faster than the others. Kang Xinmu said calmly as he looked around, a little emotional. In the past, the members of the Devouring Dragon group were all good seedlings that had not been discovered. They were all bullied in their respective hometowns. For example, Li Xian, Wang Yu, the sisters Yun Yiru and Yuni Yue. Now, however, each of them had become much stronger than before. If they returned to their hometowns, they could become the strongest in their hometowns. Of course, their ambitions were no longer in their hometowns. Chapter 55-53. Soon, Kang Xinmu separated from the rest. He had more important things to do, so he could not bring the Devouring Dragon group with him. Before they parted, Kang Xinmu asked Shangguan Dai, to bring the Devouring Dragon group back to Flame Dragon City. They would be responsible for guarding Flame Dragon City. No one knew if a demonic chi rift would appear in Flame Dragon City. Judging from the situation when Kang Xinmu came over, Flame Dragon City would not be able to withstand it. The Yen Dragon Emperor did not stand guard around Yen Dragon City. That was because there were currently no demonic chi rifts around Yen Dragon City. However, what if a demonic chi rift appeared there? Therefore, Kang Xinmu asked the Devouring Dragon group to return under Shangguan Dai's lead. Even if a demonic chi rift appeared, they could temporarily withstand the attacks of king-level and emperor-level demonic creatures. According to many people's observations, only the weaker demonic creatures could pass through when the demonic chi rift first appeared. Therefore, Kang Xinmu was not worried that the Devouring Dragon group would not be able to withstand it. Once a demonic chi rift appeared, they only needed to withstand it for a while and then spread the news. That way, they could minimize the damage to Flame Dragon City. Kang Xinmu brought Sui and continued to move in the direction of the Sealing Dragon Abyss. Along the way, Kang Xinmu transformed into a pitch-black dragon and traveled in the sky. Along the way, he encountered many demonic chi rifts along the way, but he used his devouring power to devour all of them. The power of the demonic chi rifts allowed Kang Xinmu's cultivation in the Starry Sky inheritance to increase rapidly. After all, this was a space-time rift that contained unimaginable space attribute void power. The essence of the Starry Sky inheritance was the power of space. After devouring 3 violent demonic chi rifts, Kang Xinmu had a deeper understanding of the power of space. His perception of the power of space was almost twice as keen as before. Moreover, he did not encounter any powerful demonic creatures along the way. The strongest monster was a level 7 supreme god. Under the siege of Kang Xinmu and Sui, none of them could hold on for long. All of them were devoured by Kang Xinmu. The devouring of these demonic creatures allowed Jiang Shenwu to reap great benefits in terms of the devouring power origin. After such a short period of devouring, Kang Xinmu's devour inherent skill had more than doubled. Stand guard for me for a while. After speaking to Sui, Kang Xinmu found a quiet place and prepared to break through. The origin of the devouring power was enough to allow his divine dragon heritage cultivation to make continuous breakthroughs. 2 hours later. When Kang Xinmu reappeared, his cultivation level in terms of the divine dragon's inheritance had already broken through to the 4th level of Supreme God. His cultivation base at the 4th tier of the Transcendent God realm had greatly increased his battle prowess. Even if he encountered a demonic creature at the 8th tier of the Transcendent God realm, Kang Xinmu would be able to kill it. Kang Xinmu would even be able to fight against a peak level 9 Supreme God realm demonic creature. If he used the extreme 10-directional devil seal, he would be able to break through it instantly. However, if it was not necessary, Kang Xinmu would not use the extreme 10-directional devil seal. Although it took some time, many of the surrounding demonic creatures are at the 8th or even 9th tier of the transcendent god realm. Kang Shinmu shook his head. He had no choice. He had to spend some time. Otherwise, he might have to use the extreme 10-directional Devil's Seal if he encountered some opponents. If that happened, the situation would be too passive. Therefore, it was imperative for him to break through. At this moment, the two of them were still halfway to the dragon's sealing abyss. The closer they got to the dragon's sealing abyss, the more frequent the demonic aura cracks appeared. All sorts of powerful demonic creatures surged out of the demonic aura cracks. 6th level Supreme God Realm. 7th level Supreme God Realm. 8th level Supreme God Realm. Many dragon warriors did not dare to move around alone. Not far in front of Kang Shinmu and Su Yi. A team of elites from the Holy Land of 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice was encircling a demonic aura crack that had appeared for a long time. A powerful level 8 Supreme God Realm demonic creature had just appeared in this demonic aura crack. Be careful. Among these elites were Yu Tiansheng, Gu Yusheng, and Feng Ligei. They were already level 2 Supreme God Realm experts, but at this time, they could not resist the powerful demonic creature in front of them. However, the three of them were not the only ones present. This time, many experts from the Holy Land of 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice had moved out together. Yu Tiansheng and the other 2 women were assigned to a team of 10. In this team of 10, the 3 women were the weakest. In addition to the 3 women, there were many powerful existences in the team. They looked young. Of course, this was because they were the elites of the Holy Land of 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice. All of them were either 7th grade disciples or 8th grade disciples. They were much stronger than Yu Tiansheng and the other 2 6th grade disciples. Of course, the 3 of them were much younger than the other powerhouses in the team. It was as if they had just started cultivating not long ago. As for the other experts in the team, they had basically cultivated for more than 100 years. They looked young, but in fact, they were not young. Therefore, everyone knew the talent and potential of Yu Tiansheng and the other 2 women. This made a few men in the team have some ideas about them. If they could get together with these women, they would have a comfortable life in the future. Tiansheng, don't be nervous. This mere level 8 Supreme God Realm demonic creature is not strong enough for me. A young man who looked to be in his 20s, Su Feibai, said with a smile. He instantly turned into a 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice Dragon. This person was a genius dragon warrior who had obtained the inheritance of the 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice Dragon. In the Holy Land of 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice, he had obtained a stronger space to develop. Among the level 8 disciples, his strength was already the best, and he was almost able to break through to the level of level 9 Supreme God Realm. One day, there was a high chance that he would break through and become a supreme expert. Therefore, Su Feibai was very confident in himself. In his opinion, Yu Tiansheng and the other 2 women were just country bumpkins from the Dragon Martial continent. How could they compare to him, the descendants of nobles in the great world of the dragon gods? In fact, he was already one of the strongest experts in his family. If it weren't for the fact that his father was still alive, he would have already become the head of the family. This trip to the Dragon Martial continent was not to protect the Dragon Martial continent. It was all to win the favor of Yu Tiansheng and the others. His ultimate goal was naturally to take advantage of this opportunity to take Yu Tiansheng and the other 2 women into his pocket. However, just as he transformed into the 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice Divine Dragon and charged towards the 8th level Transcendent God Realm demonic being, a peak 9th level Transcendent God Realm demonic being flew out from the crack in the demonic chi. Chapter 55-54. Su Feibai's expression changed on the spot. After he transformed into a divine dragon, a look of shock appeared in his eyes. He could still fight against an 8th level Transcendent God. However, if a 9th level Transcendent God was added to the mix, he would not be able to fight against it. Let's go. He bellowed and immediately turned around without thinking. He would never do something he was not confident in. This was also the reason why he was able to live to this day. He was cautious enough. However, the others did not expect him to turn around. By the time everyone came to their senses, Su Feibai, who had transformed into a pentagonal mysterious ice divine dragon, had already flown behind them. Yu Tianchang, Gu Yusheng, and Feng Ligei could only retreat with him. However, the speed at which they retreated was a little slow. After all, their cultivation realms were not as high as the other dragon martial artists around them. They were also lacking in terms of body movements and dragon techniques. The other dragon martial artists were all extremely experienced grade 8 disciples. These grade 8 disciples had been cultivating various dragon techniques for at least a few decades. Whether it was body movements or defensive dragon techniques, they had sufficient attainments. They were unlike Yu Tianchang and the other two girls, who had just stepped into the super divine dragon realm not long ago. Their cultivation of the super divine dragon technique was definitely lagging behind. Under Su Feibai's leadership, everyone quickly retreated. However, the two demonic creatures quickly chased after them, one in front and one behind. Yu Tianchang and the other two girls were at the very back. Naturally, they were not as fast as the two demonic creatures. After all, the two demonic creatures were in the 8th and 9th level of the Supreme God realm. How could they possibly escape from them? Damn it! Yu Tianchang's heart sank. It was not that she had not expected that she would encounter danger. Since she had chosen to come to the Dragon Martial Continent to provide support, she had naturally expected that there might be danger. However, she had never thought that she would encounter danger under such circumstances. Generally speaking, this kind of group operation would naturally be the strong fighting the strong. Yu Tianchang and the other two girls would be responsible for dealing with some of the weaker demonic creatures. However, who would have thought that Su Feibai and the others would retreat without a second thought? That was only a 9th level transcendent god realm demonic creature. If everyone joined forces, they might not necessarily be a match for him. At the very least, Su Feibai himself was an existence that was about to break through to the 9th tier of the super mystical dragon realm. Unexpectedly, they saw that monster fleeing directly in front of everyone. It was simply breathtaking. Let's split up. Yu Tianchang turned around and said to Feng Ligei and Gu Yusheng. If they continued to run like this, they would definitely be caught by the two demonic beasts. With their combat strength, once they were caught by the two demonic beasts, only death awaited them. Gu Yusheng and Feng Ligei both transformed into their slender divine dragon forms and nodded at his words. Then, they flew off in different directions. Then, the two monsters seemed to hesitate about who to chase. But soon, they chose to go after Yu Tianchang, who was in the middle. The two demonic creatures naturally wanted to kill as many dragon martialists as possible. Therefore, as long as Yu Tianchang and the others caught up, they could continue to pursue Su Feibai and the others. There was no doubt that Yu Tianchang was now in the most dangerous situation. Feibai, are you really not going to save them? Su Feibai, who was flying at the forefront, was followed by a divine dragon martialist of the wind element. He caught up with him and asked in a deep voice. How? Su Feibai immediately sneered, and a ruthless look appeared in his divine dragon eyes. If there is only one 8th tier supreme divine beast, I will naturally take action. Now that there is a 9th tier supreme divine beast. Once I get involved in the battle, I'm afraid I won't be able to escape. What if an even stronger monster appears? When that time comes, we will definitely be wiped out. Hearing Su Feibai's words, the divine dragon martialist of the wind element didn't say anything else. However, when everyone looked at Yu Tianchang, who was lagging behind, they all felt that it was a pity. Obviously, they usually treated Yu Tianchang very well. After all, Yu Tianchang was related to Yu Yaji. Both of them were extremely beautiful and talented. In time, they would definitely become grade 9 disciples of the Holy Land of 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice, and they might even achieve supreme positions. But that was only a possibility. The possibility wasn't high. Right now, Yu Tianchang's combat strength was too weak, and she was basically regarded as a little junior sister. Under the current circumstances, it didn't seem to be a problem for Su Feibai to make such a decision. After all, by sacrificing Yu Tianchong, the others would be very safe. But such an action really made people feel a little bitterly disappointed. Of course, this world respected the strong. If Su Feibai didn't go to fight against the 9th-tier Supreme Divine Beast, it was even more impossible for the others to go. They could only fly away as fast as they could. At this moment, suddenly, a pitch-black divine dragon appeared in front of everyone. Many of the divine dragon martialist disciples recognized this figure. They all looked familiar. It's actually that Kang Xinmu. Everyone's expression became strange. They basically recognized Kang Xinmu's identity. I didn't expect this kid to actually come back. I thought he would stay in the great world of the demon god race and not come back. Su Feibai smiled disdainfully. However, he's from our holy land after all. It's better not to send him to his death. The Wind Attribute Divine Dragon Martialist said, then flew forward towards Kang Xinmu. He shouted from afar, there's a pinnacle supreme divine beast ahead. All of you, retreat. He saw a delicate girl sitting on the neck of the pitch-black divine dragon that Kang Xinmu had transformed into. He was very unfamiliar with the girl, but he could roughly guess that she should be the little princess of the Su royal family from the great world of the demon god race. Therefore, he didn't want anything to happen to Kang Xinmu here. If something happened to the little princess of the demon god race here, it would be a huge matter. All of you, retreat. Kang Xinmu and Su Yi watched the Wind Attribute Divine Dragon fly over and shouted. They couldn't help but become focused. Someone's been left alone? Kang Xinmu originally didn't intend to retreat, especially when he soon discovered that behind the group of divine dragon martialists in front of him, there was a familiar figure of a divine dragon martialist who was left alone. It was Yu Tianchong. She was actually alone, struggling to keep up with everyone at the back. And behind Yu Tianchong, there were two demonic beasts that were close to the pinnacle supreme divine beast level, and they were getting closer and closer to her. What was going on? Kang Xinmu's expression suddenly changed. These divine dragon martialists in front of him actually didn't help Yu Tianchong? Chapter 55-55. What's wrong with these dragon martial artists? They let the younger generation of their holy land attract the monsters, but they don't help. Are they just going to watch her get killed? Su Yi was a little indignant. Let's go. Jiang Shenwu didn't even think about it. He simply ignored the wind attribute divine dragon warrior. With a flick of his tail, his pitch-black divine dragon body quickly flew towards Yu Tianchong. He was much faster than before. After all, he was trying to save someone. What are you doing? The wind attribute divine dragon was taken aback. Even Su Feibai and the other dragon martial artists were puzzled. What was this guy planning to do? They could all feel that Kang Xinmu's current divine dragon cultivation was only at the 4th level of Supreme God Realm. With such strength, he was only slightly stronger than Yu Tianchong. How dare he go to save Yu Tianchong? He's overestimating himself. Since he wants to go, let him go. Su Feibai sneered and said coldly, even if something really happens, it has nothing to do with us. Just ignore them. Feibai, it's not appropriate. The wind attribute divine dragon said in a deep voice, after all, they are important. If something happens to them, we won't have a good time either. We still have to help. Humph. Su Feibai snorted unhappily. He really did not intend to help Kang Xinmu, but he felt that if he did not help Kang Xinmu, he would really be responsible if something happened to Kang Xinmu and Su Yi. At this moment, Kang Xinmu had already flown in front of Yu Tianchong with Su Yi. Kang Xinmu? Let's go. Yu Tianchong did not have time to say anything. When she saw Kang Xinmu coming, her first reaction was to ask him to leave first. After all, in her opinion, Kang Shinmu was not much stronger than her. At the very least, it was impossible for him to survive in the face of a peak Supreme God Realm monster. However, at this moment, Jiang Shenwu was eager to give it a try. He had just broken through to the next level, and to him, now was the time when he needed a sufficiently powerful opponent to consolidate his strength. The 9th-tier transcendent god demonic creature in front of him was just right. "Don't worry, you go first, I can handle it." After saying that, Kang Shinmu let Su Yi stay with Yu Tianchang first. Then, he turned around and rushed towards the two powerful monsters that were close to the peak of Supreme God Realm. The two demonic creatures were shrouded in a pitch-black demonic aura. The terrifying energy formed waves that spread out in all directions. Seeing that the black dragon Kang Shinmu had transformed into actually dared to rush over, the two demonic creatures immediately erupted with demonic aura. Waves of demonic aura swept towards Kang Shinmu. Humph. At this moment, Su Feibai's 5 Extremes Dark Ice Dragon and the 9th-ranked disciple Pu Tianhua, who had transformed into a Wind Divine Dragon, also swept over along with Kang Shinmu's black dragon body. "We'll do our best to save your life. Let's leave now," Su Feibai sneered. The 5 Extremes Dark Ice Divine Dragon's body was surrounded by boundless ice power, condensing into a layer of ice barrier that blocked in front of Kang Shinmu. Seeing this, Kang Shinmu frowned slightly. He had originally wanted to train with these two demonic creatures and familiarize himself with his current strength. In the end, he did not expect that Su Feibai and Pu Tianhua would actually turn around and protect him. Kang Shinmu could roughly understand the reason, who asked his identity to be so special. He had even brought along Su Yi, the little princess of the demon god race. If anything were to happen, Su Feibai and the others would not be able to bear the consequences. But this made Kang Shinmu feel somewhat disdainful. Just now, when Yu Tianchang was being chased, none of them moved. Now, seeing that he and Su Yi were going to fight the demonic creatures, they turned around to fight the demonic creatures. It was as if they were deliberately trying to kill Yu Tianchang. Of course, Kang Shinmu knew that these people were from the 5 Extremes Dark Ice Holy Land, after all. It was unlikely that they were trying to kill Yu Tianchang. It could only be said that these people might not be confident in dealing with the peak Supreme God-level demonic creatures. Or perhaps they were worried that more such demonic creatures would appear, so they chose to temporarily retreat. But in Kang Shinmu's opinion, these people were too greedy. They were simply bullying the weak and fearing the strong. They did not save Yu Tianchang and the others, but instead came to save Kang Shinmu. Did Kang Shinmu need them to save him? Of course, now Su Feibai and Pu Tianhua were facing off against a supreme god-level demonic creature. Pu Tianhua was fighting against an 8th-tier supreme god-level demonic creature. As for the demonic creature that was close to the peak supreme god level, it was blocked by Su Feibai. Under the power of the 5 Extremes Dark Ice, the demonic creature was blocked. Now that things had come to this, Kang Shinmu could not intervene. He could only fly back to Yu Tianchang's side. What's going on with them? Su Yi stood on the slender neck of Yu Tianchang's divine dragon body and said angrily. Of course, she knew that with Kang Shinmu's current strength, it would be easy for him to deal with a peak supreme god-level demonic creature. Yet, Su Feibai actually said that he had reluctantly come to save Kang Shinmu's life. What a shameless boast. Especially for Yu Tianchang, how ironic was this? Thank you very much. Yu Tianchang stopped and breathed a sigh of relief. Her expression was somewhat complicated. She thanked Kang Shinmu in a low voice, expressing her gratitude for Kang Shinmu's courage. In her opinion, Kang Shinmu was still no match for the two demonic creatures. Kang Shinmu's actions just now were probably to force Su Feibai and Pu Tianhua to hold back the two demonic creatures. It's fine. Why did they leave you behind? Kang Shinmu could not help but ask. Not just me, but also Li Gu, Yu Sheng, and the others. Yu Tianchang shook her head with a wry smile. Actually, we weren't really left behind. Our cultivation is relatively low, and our speed is relatively slow. There's nothing we can do if we can't catch up with them. As for their retreat just now, it's probably because they're afraid of attracting more demonic creatures. If that happens, we'll probably all be wiped out. She had heard some of the discussion just now. Although she felt it was sad, there was nothing she could do about it. Who asked her to be so weak? I'll tell my master when I get back, Kang Shinmu said. In his opinion, this kind of behavior was ridiculous and completely unreasonable. They were all disciples of the same Holy Land, and they were fellow disciples. Yet, they abandoned whoever they wanted just because they were afraid of attracting more demonic creatures? Most importantly, now that Kang Shinmu and Su Yi had come, Su Feibai and Pu Tianhua had actually returned to deal with the two demonic creatures. These people were truly laughable. In any case, Kang Shinmu could not understand their mentality. At this time, Su Feibai and Pu Tianhua had already suppressed their respective opponents. Chapter 55-56. As for Su Feibai, he seemed to be struggling. After all, his cultivation was only at the 8th level of the Transcendent God realm. Although he was about to break through to the 9th level, there was still a gap between him and a real 9th level demonic creature. Of course, with his rich experience and the various transcendent divine dragon martial techniques that he had fully comprehended, he could fight the demonic creature to a draw. He was waiting. He was waiting for Pu Tianhua to kill the 8th level demonic creature and then help him. That way, they could work together to kill the pinnacle 9th level demonic creature. From this point of view, Su Feibai's worries weren't unreasonable. If they were to be entangled via the crevice of the demonic chi, they wouldn't be a match for even one peak stage transcendent god realm demonic beast. Soon after, Gu Yuxing and Feng Ligei seemed to have also sensed the fluctuations of the battle, so they quickly returned and met up with Yu Tianchang. The disciples of the Holy Land of Five Extremes Mysterious Ice, who had fled with Su Feibai and Pu Tianhua, also returned. Kang Shinmu, I didn't expect you to think of such a way to force senior brother Feibai to help you block the demonic creature. You're really scheming. A female disciple of the Holy Land of Five Extremes Mysterious Ice, who was at the 7th level of the Transcendent God realm, sneered and looked at Kang Shinmu. She had been pursuing Su Feibai all this time and was his loyal supporter. Now, she naturally stood on Su Feibai's side. Seeing Su Feibai fight with the pinnacle supreme god demonic creature, she could not help but feel a little distressed. Senior brother Feibai is too nice. If it were me, I wouldn't care about you at all and let you fend for yourselves. The female disciple sneered and said. Kang Shinmu listened at the side and did not say anything. Su Yi could not stand it anymore and snorted coldly. Nice? You abandoned your junior sister in the Holy Land and even watched her get caught up by the demonic creature. You call that nice? The female disciple looked at Su Yi and was a little angry. You're the little princess of the demon god race? Humph, what a joke. Do you think that with your status, you can teach a disciple of my Five Extreme Profound Ice Holy Land a lesson? Let me tell you, if it wasn't for senior brother Fei by helping you stop the demons, you would have already died in the hands of the demons. Do you understand? I didn't expect that. Not only are you not grateful, you even have a problem with senior brother Fei Bai? What a joke. As soon as he finished speaking, the surrounding disciples of the Five Extreme Dark Ice Holy Land all cried out in alarm as they looked in the direction of the demonic creature. Oh no! Another Supreme God Pinnacle level demon has come. Senior brother Su is in danger. Everyone's expression changed drastically. Right now, Su Feibai was still fighting against the first Supreme God Pinnacle stage demonic being. It seemed like neither of them could do anything to the other. Originally, he was waiting for Pu Tianhua's support. But now, before Pu Tianhua could get rid of his opponent, a second peak stage Supreme God Berserk demonic creature had appeared. Moreover, this second Supreme God Level 9 demonic creature was a true Supreme God peak existence. Compared to the demonic creature that Su Feibai was fighting, it was a level stronger. This was something that everyone could see. What should we do? I didn't expect an even stronger demonic creature to appear. We're finished. Quick, call the elders for backup. The elders are very far away from here. It's too late to call for backup now. Everyone's expression changed drastically. Did you see that? It's all your fault. If you didn't insist on provoking that demonic creature, Senior Brother Fei Bai wouldn't have put himself in danger to save you. The 7th-stage Supreme God Holy Land female disciple said with a pale face. Immediately, following her words, the surrounding disciples of the 5 Extreme Dark Ice Holy Land started to blame Kang Xinmu and Su Yi. Shut up. Kang Xinmu looked around and shouted, causing all the disciples to shut their mouths. Why? You did something wrong, yet you're yelling at us? Who do you think you are? Why did Emperor Shi accept such a rude disciple like you? Don't you know what's good for you? The female disciple said sternly. I told you to shut up, so shut up. Don't you understand? Kang Xinmu sneered. From the beginning to the end, did I ask you to come and help? Didn't Su Fei Bai return on his own accord because he was afraid that something would happen to me and Yi? All of you, scram. He raised his hand, and a wave of devouring power and demonic aura exploded, causing the group of 5 Extreme Dark Ice Holy Land disciples to retreat far away. Not only did these people escape in the face of danger, but they also didn't help Su Fei Bai when he was fighting. They only knew how to make sarcastic remarks behind his back. Kang Xinmu naturally wouldn't give them any face. When the stronger peak Supreme God Berserk demonic creature appeared, Kang Xinmu was already prepared to make a move. All of you, be careful. Don't get caught up in the battle. After saying that, Kang Xinmu flew directly towards the Berserk demonic creature. At this moment, everyone was shocked. Yu Tianchang and the other 2 girls didn't expect Kang Xinmu to take the initiative to fight. In their opinion, Kang Xinmu definitely wasn't a match for that Berserk demonic creature. As for the Dragon Warrior disciples of the 5 Extreme Dark Ice Holy Land who had just been repelled by the demonic aura, they all had ugly expressions on their faces. One had to know that Kang Xinmu was clearly only at the 4th level of the Supreme God realm, yet he was able to repel all of them with a burst of demonic aura. What kind of power was that? Was this person really as rumored? Did he have battle prowess that far exceeded his current cultivation level? But so what? This kid overestimates himself. No matter how much of a genius he is, it's impossible for him to fight against a peak Supreme God realm demonic creature. That's right. I think he's just trying to look impressive, many people whispered to each other. Su Yi immediately sneered at them. All of you, shut up. If you have the ability, go deal with the demonic creature yourself. Don't point at us and make fun of us. I didn't expect the dignified disciples of the 5 Extreme Dark Ice Holy Land to be such a bunch of cowards. And they're cowards who can't tell right from wrong. Her identity was special, so she could scold them as she pleased. The other party wouldn't dare to do anything to her. In everyone's eyes, the pitch-black divine dragon that Kang Xinmu had transformed into finally clashed with the berserk demonic creature that was at the peak Supreme God realm. Waves of berserk power spread out in all directions and instantly exploded. As soon as the 2 sides collided, a shocking commotion erupted. It was much more terrifying than the battle scene on Su Feibai's side. One had to know that Su Feibai was just stalling for time at the beginning, waiting for Pu Tianhua to defeat his opponent and come over to help. Therefore, he didn't use much power and only focused on defense. This way, he could preserve his power to the greatest extent. But now... Chapter 55-57. When Kang Xinmu made his move and fought to a draw with the berserk demonic creature, everyone in the surroundings was shocked. They had never expected that Kang Xinmu would be able to fight to a draw with a berserk demonic creature at the peak of the Supreme God realm. How is this possible? Isn't he only at the 4th tier of the Supreme God realm? That's right. A 4th-tier transcendent god fighting against a 9th-tier transcendent god. This is impossible. Perhaps he has Emperor Shi's treasure. With that treasure, it wouldn't be surprising for him to be able to fight against a peak transcendent god. The disciples of the 5 extremes mysterious ice holy land quickly thought of this. After all, Kang Shinmu was a disciple of Emperor Shi. If Emperor Shi gave him some treasures, such as a 6th or 7th level heaven and earth sacred treasure, and all of them were unsealed, then fighting against a peak transcendent god would be nothing. They would even feel that it was reasonable to kill this berserk demonic creature at the peak of the supreme god realm. At this very moment, Su Feibai's mental state had already collapsed. He did not expect Kang Shinmu to have such strength. Just the fierce attack that he had just used to fight against the berserk demonic creature at the peak of the supreme god realm had already surpassed his strongest power. What was going on? Indeed, as the successor of the 5 extremes mysterious ice holy land, Su Feibai had the bloodline of the 5 extremes mysterious ice divine dragon flowing in his body. He was truly proficient in ice-type attacks. His control method was extremely strong. In terms of attack power, he was indeed inferior. However, that was only when they were at the same cultivation realm. If he was facing an ordinary dragon warrior at the 4th tier of the supreme god realm, Su Feibai would be able to kill him with a single move. But now, Kang Shinmu was clearly only at the 4th tier of the supreme god realm. Moreover, Su Feibai could clearly see that he was very close. It was obvious that Kang Shinmu did not use any powerful heaven and earth sacred treasure. At most, he had only used his own transcendent divine dragon weapon. This caused Su Feibai's expression to turn ugly. Could it be that Kang Shinmu could really defeat that berserk demonic creature at the peak of the supreme god realm? If that was the case, wouldn't he be making a fool of himself? Kang Shinmu had taken the initiative to rescue Yu Tianchang and the others, but in the end, they were worried that Kang Shinmu would come to confront the devil instead. That was not all. After that, the disciples of the 5 extremes mysterious ice holy land even looked down on Kang Shinmu and verbally abused him. If Kang Shinmu really didn't have that kind of strength, then so be it. But now, Kang Shinmu seemed to be very strong. If he could really defeat that berserk devil, wouldn't that mean that he, Su Feibai, was thinking too highly of himself and meddling in other people's business? It was extremely stupid. No. Su Feibai thought for a moment and immediately made a decision. He was going to help Kang Shinmu. His Pentepex dark ice divine dragon form forcibly broke away from the battle, then turned and flew towards Kang Shinmu. Junior brother, let me help you. He transformed into a divine dragon, and his ice power sprayed out like a meteor, sweeping towards that berserk devil. Kang Shinmu didn't expect this guy to help him, but he didn't care. Extreme destructive heavenly might dragon soul. 33 heavens divine feathers. Kang Shinmu used the extreme destructive heavenly might dragon soul and erupted with the power of the 33 heavens divine feathers. 9 layers of the extreme destructive heavenly might dragon soul instantly erupted. In just an instant, that berserk devil first suffered a heavy blow from Kang Shinmu's 9 layers of the extreme destructive heavenly might dragon soul, and its whole body was enveloped by the pitch-black innate ability of devouring. Then, Su Feibai's ice power swept over. The berserk devil was directly pushed back several thousand feet. Kang Shinmu naturally wouldn't let go of this good opportunity. He directly chased after it, and the extreme destructive heavenly might dragon soul, a super divine dragon martial technique that had been cultivated to the peak, erupted. 10 layers. 11 layers. 12 layers. As the effect of the 33 heavens divine feathers became stronger, Kang Shinmu's extreme destructive heavenly might dragon soul attacks also became stronger and stronger, attacking the berserk devil one after another. Just now, his pitch-black devouring power had already enveloped the entire body of the berserk devil, and the berserk devil kept struggling. It tried to break through the encirclement of Kang Shinmu's devouring power. But how could Kang Shinmu give it a chance? Devouring, continuous attacks. Kang Shinmu continuously devoured the opponent's power, condensed it into a ball, and counterattacked again. After being enhanced by the formless weapon Chen Xing's super-offensive battle runes, it landed on the body of the Berserk Devil. Even if it was a terrifying 9th-level Transcendent God, which was close to the peak of the Transcendent God realm, it couldn't resist Kang Shinmu at all. Under Kang Shinmu's storm-like attacks, it couldn't hold on at all. In the end, it was completely killed by Kang Shinmu's extreme destructive heavenly might dragon soul attacks one after another. Its mighty demonic energy was all devoured by Kang Shinmu's devouring power. In a short period of time, the 9th-level Transcendent God Beast was killed by Kang Shinmu. As for Su Feibai, who came to help just now, he was a little shocked. He didn't expect Kang Shinmu to be so strong. He directly suppressed the Berserk Devil with a ferocious attack and completely suppressed it. So strong. Su Feibai couldn't help but be shocked. However, he turned around and fought with his original opponent, the level 9 Supreme God Realm demonic creature. He came over to help Kang Shinmu. However, Kang Shinmu immediately killed the Berserk Devil. Haha, this Kang Shinmu is only a so-so. It was thanks to senior brother Feibai's help that he was able to defeat that devil. The 7th-level Transcendent God female disciple of the 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice Holy Land finally heaved a sigh of relief. However, she didn't think that Kang Shinmu was stronger. In her opinion, the reason why the Berserk Devil was so easily killed was because of the help of her senior brother Su Feibai. The disciples of the 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice Holy Land couldn't see it clearly either. After all, they were too far away. In their opinion, Su Feibai had taken the time to help Kang Shinmu, and then Kang Shinmu had killed the opponent's Berserk Devil. In their eyes, Su Feibai was a supreme expert of the 8th-level Transcendent God Realm. He wasn't far from the 9th-level Transcendent God Realm. In fact, he was only one step away. Therefore, Su Feibai must have played the most important role in the process of killing the Berserk Devil. However, they didn't know that the truth was that Su Feibai had just come over and interfered. Even without him, the process of Jiang Shenwu killing that berserk demonic creature would not have been the slightest hesitation. This was the objective that Su Feibai wanted to achieve. At the very least, he couldn't let himself lose face. Junior brother Kang Shinmu, let's join forces and kill this devil. Su Feibai said to Kang Shinmu righteously. He really couldn't deal with the 9th-level Transcendent God Realm monster alone. He could barely resist its attack, but he couldn't kill it. Therefore, he wanted to ask Kang Shinmu for help. All of this was for his face. Kang Shinmu couldn't be bothered with him. Devouring the power of these devils was beneficial to him. Therefore, Kang Shinmu didn't intend to give the 9th-level Transcendent God Realm monster to others. You're tuning in to the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.